What's up?
You said you had some success with negotiable instruments. I was wondering what you use, and if you don't mind sharing, since you started, because I remember I was tuned in pretty early when you started on TikTok with a lot of this stuff, and I was just wondering what are some of your biggest or best successes so far?
Spence, hold on one second. I'm so sorry. I just want her to get her answer, just so we don't get confusion and we're not bouncing around. Yeah, no, you're fine. But I want to know as well, but I'm just so we get a complete answer.
Ms. Panda, so the question was, should I put SBC at the end of my signature now?
Yes, that would be an excellent, because you're citing that this is your original point. You're utilizing it correctly at the back. Secure party creditor without prejudice is the complete one that you do. So you always put that there so as to highlight and to tell people straight away that you are solely within the private, so you don't recognize anything that's done to defame you in the public.
Okay.
I think I have been hearing some of us have made a connection to something, and Ampu's been saying this ad nauseum. Panda has said time and time again that these processes will be done after doing the political status declaration. I think what I've been hearing constantly is when we're completely in the private in doing this, we will be a secure party creditor and have an absolute unfettered transactions. When we're doing it as an agent for the legal name, yeah, we can be protected and indemnified and have a few successes occasionally, but everything we've been doing co-mingling. This is what Ampu keeps saying over and over and over. And so Pandas has said so many times, the first part of her process is getting that status, that political status declaration perfected before moving anything. So I myself and some others in the chat, we're going to stop all processes. I'm not doing a single move again until I get that document perfected, because I'm seeing now that I have actually, without realizing it, thinking I was not commingling at all, I have been commingling every step of the way. So even though I know how to endorse things where I'm not going to jail for it, and I am authorized to do certain things, I'm literally still operating in the public by trying to use a public transmitting utility, basically.
Me personally, I feel comfortable moving until I know every move.
Say again?
I say I wouldn't feel comfortable, me personally, making a move until I know every move. What comes after that?
I had literally not started anything because I want to get my head wrapped around it, like, completely. These are like messing with the big dogs. You don't want to really be making mistakes at this level, you know?
Right. Because I don't even want to file, you know what I'm saying? To go ahead and file for my status, because you know what I'm saying, without knowing exactly all the efforts that need to be put in behind that.
Right, you can't. You literally can't until you know that. That's smart.
Yeah. Well, the point I'm trying to make, though, is there are a bunch of us that have already been doing lots of things, lots of processes with lots of negotiable instruments, and now I'm literally seeing the public and the private in a way I've never seen it before. Even though I get what Ampu talks about, because I've gone down that road a lot, but I literally now I'm like, oh my God, I'm still co-mingling in a way I didn't even realize. And so I think that a lot of us that already are doing tons of processes with negotiable instruments and remittance coupons and all these things, I think we're mixing public and private and co-mingling. I believe that now.
Yeah, and anytime that I've written letters to even the Secretary of State, or whenever I wrote to the IRS, I write them like I'm writing my pen pal. I tell them, hey, this is what I'm doing. Please let me know if I've made any mistakes. Let me know if there's an additional information that you need from me. Here's how to get a hold of me, that kind of stuff. And I just feel like coming to them in an authentic kind of like, hey, I'm not really sure if this is right or not. So, I've even told, I don't want to get, I've said in my letters, I don't want to get in trouble. So, please let me know if there's anything else that I need, or anything else that I've done wrong, or anything like that. And I mean, at this point, even with the IRS, I was on the phone with them for 4 hours, and the guy that I was talking to said, why does your account say humanitarian? And I was like, I knew why, because I hand wrote a letter to them and told them, like, this is what I want to do, and I want to do the humanitarian project, and I can't wait for these funds to be released so that I can start. I mean, I was literally wrote them like they were a pen pal. So clearly, that when the guys asked me why I had humanitarian on my account, that signified to me that yes, they do, like. They take note of that kind of stuff. Now, if it seems or feels a little sneaky kind of stuff, then, I'm sure then the red flags go up. But if you're doing it out of good, wholeheartedly, like, hey, I really want to, fix this and stay in honor, and, I forgive you, you forgive, that kind of stuff. Because essentially, even whenever we're out in the public now, it's in dishonor. We're using fake fiat to tender our purchases, and so we're kind of both wrong, us and the corporations. So coming to them in a combative kind of energy, I just don't think that works.
I was huge on making sure my cover letters always stated to not always had unless prohibited by law. Never file anything if it's against the law. You know what I'm saying? As long as you articulate that in the cover letter and have proof of your cover letter, and I did registered mail, I found it very important. Some people that were getting frivolous filings for their...
We can hear your background. We can hear your background, my guy. Go ahead, Spencer.
Yeah, so I just remember when we were doing all these cover letters, and there was some original people involved in those W4 sandwiches, and I remember just being really nervous, and I'm like, can I just ask them to not do anything? They're like, that's amazing, let's add that. And then from that point forward, everybody was putting unless prohibited by law. You know what I'm saying? And that's just a huge thing. You're showing your intentions, and you're telling them who you are, and that's something so simple I think a lot of people are missing when they send things out and they handwrite. I think it's awesome to always say that.
Mm-hmm. I found one of the letters that I wrote. It was kind of funny because I guess I got so emotional into it. And typically I sign with love and light, and then I'll write my name. And I actually wrote that, and then I kind of had to laugh. And I was like, well, I guess whoever gets that, I hope they get love and light today. It was just kind of funny.
That's awesome.
Mm-hmm. But the negotiable instruments, it's a bill of exchange. And I had a friend of mine draw one up for me, and I thought, okay, here we go. I hope this works, but I felt like I did my due diligence, and I already contacted them in May, and then also in June, July timeframe. And then once I moved down here, then, then I wanted to get settled in, and then I wanted to send it. So I sent it, and I didn't hear anything back. And then I asked the office about it, and they said, yep, corporate got it, you're good. And I was like, holy shit. That was so easy to me that I had to have a moment with myself. Really? Now I'm questioning the office. I'm like, really? What did they really say?
What was that?
Yes, Panda. Excuse me. Are you there, love?
Yes, I am, ma'am.
Okay. So something just dawned on me, because it is somebody new down in the comments, right? And it made it dawn on me. So you're basically talking about with your classes in your political status. What are the different political statuses? And also, what are the differences in those two, state, national? And Socrates.
A little bit.
Okay, you're breaking up a little bit. I heard your complete question, so that's not an issue. Spencer, were you did you want to chime in on that? Then would you add an addition and expound, and I'll answer you both directly.
Oh, no, I was just going to say that the state nationals generally use Title 8, Section 1101, and they go to definitions A21, and when it comes to right of self-determination, and there's state citizen kind of verbiage in there, and so that is generally the legal portion and the code that they're using when they are talking about their statutory status correction, and that applies to multiple different statutory statuses, and I emphasize statutory status. All right, I digress.
No, you didn't digress. You're actually on point, and that's the point of it. The problem is that there are not a lot of the words, and they haven't translated them, because bearing in mind it's the language of spellbinding, and that's what it is. If one is a citizen, there's no way of being sovereign with that, because citizen, if you break it down, is city and then zen. That's to do with the state capital. You see what I'm saying? So it doesn't matter what state they're located in. If they sign that and they're saying, national citizen or state citizen, it doesn't matter. They're still just basically saying the difference between using, let's say if it's a UCC filing, the difference between national form and a state form. It's basically the same thing. The only difference is the limit to which you will actually do something. That's the thing where I went, if you really want to do this, I said, again, it depends on your goals, because when you realize that you got to pivot, you can't, there's certain terms, certain words you're never going to be able to use. You're basically going to have to do the old fashioned discharge as much as possible, use a UCC3 with the, excuse me 1 second, and use the 10, if you need to use a 1099, otherwise just use a 1040, and then most certainly just declare your past withholdings. If you had old bills that were out and you were discharging them, so you have to express them so as to highlight what the value of those particular citations are, and then put them in the treasury, for example. Okay, then you've got a situation where that's more than enough if you're going to correct it and be effective in commerce. Because when you're doing that, like I said, you can do a UCC3 as well, where you just put a subordinate jacket just to say, hey man, I'm tired. If I've got anything else new to do, put the what do you call it? Clean the last, as I say, loose bits up and whatnot. Because that's essentially what I actually also had done with the situation with my aunt. Because where she just basically wanted to be effective in commerce. So I said, I know that, so I put that in there. Did not use that. I didn't, because she also is a United States citizen, so I didn't use any of that. I just did it the old-fashioned way, because the problem is with a lot of these words there, because you see, if you're at sea, you only can speak washer language, if that makes sense. So therefore, it's different if you're saying like you're a marine god. They won't use those languages. They'll just send spiritual command, if that makes sense. You'd so only say secure party creditor without prejudice. But because the entity is looking at the fact that they're on the land and they're trying to go against the washer, but what they don't understand is the fact that sovereignty, you cannot then use washer expressions to define yourself, which would be the incorporated C's with the jobs when they say national or citizen. Those are all incorporated washer terms, aka maritime admiralty terms. Does that make sense to everyone?
I'm not gonna lie, I got lost in the middle of it. But that's because of my lack of sleep. It's not you.
Okay, no worries. When you use the titles of profession, I have to say 1 second on. When it comes to the titles of profession, they're all titles that are under incorporated water. That's what admiralty is. So it's not the law of the sea in the way that you see it in front of you. It's the law of the incorporated SEE. That's what it is. That's what.
I would like, so if someone says, like we've kind of been learning, I'm a Floridian, that doesn't seem like, is Florida in and of itself a corporation? We know the state of Florida would be incorporated, or incorporation, law of the sea. But if I'm a Floridian, is that of the land, the language of the land? Could you say that?
Are you a resident?
1 second. What you'd have to say is an entity that is innate to the land of Florida, freeman on the land of Florida, and then put your property in exemption brackets. That's how you would use the language, because then you're telling them you're utilizing everything in the private to say that you have absolute status as per the class that you've actually been given, so that you most certainly are not accepting anything else, and that most certainly using your private means to settle the public record, because it shouldn't have been there in the first place, and a lot of people were just too stupid dipping in other people's closets and so on. So because of that,
verbiage to have in our status, our correction, like affidavits, that would be the verbiage. I'm gonna write that down right now. Thank you.
You're welcome. So whenever you set your house, you gotta put exemption brackets around it, because if you're using your rights to sovereign, those are the square brackets. That's the exemptions. Put that around your zip code, because then that takes your property outside of the United States. And then you would have to say freeman on the land of Florida. So when you say Florida, then you put the exemption bracket. So you basically say it's outside of the military authority. So it takes Washington out, every corporation out of that. So then when you endorse anything, there's a certain way you do it. If you want to write on the back of it, secure party creditor without prejudice, basically you're saying you're implementing to the best of your knowledge. But if there was a lack of full disclosure, you're not going to get slammed with it. Does that make sense to everyone?
Okay, so let me see if I'm following. Right. So so when you do a political status, then you are not only claiming the rights of your corporation as an entity, but you're also claiming the spiritual lineage.
No, it's better this way. When you use the term and you say free man on the land, basically what you're saying is you're not a serf. I have to use this term. Can everyone that's the opportunity to gain access to an open internet window, please could you look up this word serfdom? Because the reason why I say this, because this is where the particular term comes from, freemen of the land, and you'll see the business of what they call the gold, the golden key to the city actually comes from. The reason why I'm saying it is because of the fact that otherwise it will be, yes, that particular word spelled exactly we the people, because when you look at that particular word, you'll see exactly what I mean when you read the sections. It actually tells you exactly as to what it is, what that means. They are actually shanked by the state. That's the system that you're actually in at the moment. And what happens is that with that situation, what one has to, thank you, status of the peasants, they also talk about the knights, then the barons, they talk about that. That's all the system is. So when people are working on the land, you've got to detach yourself, because serfdom refers to because all of the ecclesiastes, they're classified as knights under the admiralty system. So if it's a secretary of state, classified as a parish priest and a knight. You see what I'm saying? Sometimes you can join a knight also being a priest. You see what I'm saying? So this is why people said, are you serious? So this is why I said feudal labor. Thank you. This is what I'm talking about. All of these things, they still implemented it. 1 second. Hi, Charlie. What's up? So the thing about it is that, what I'm saying, what then is the case when you actually have that, you only want to say one thing. And I say again, you only want to say one thing. If you want to ensure that you protect what you have in the land of Florida or in the land of your home state, you would have to say free man or free woman. If you want to say race of man, man to man, or you just want to say free woman, either is correct. And you would say straight away, free man or free woman on the land of, and you say what the name of your state is, but then where you actually would place the address, because some people do with the affidavit, place that on the address, citation underneath the affidavit if you wish to utilize that, and put exemption brackets around that. That's a completely different language. Just 1 second, someone's asking to come up, but I would have to ask everyone to mute so I can finish answering your question, and then I'll go to the entities come up to ask another question. Thank you. So this is why I said with regards to what's actually going on. If you are, because otherwise, if you say that, because nothing's wrong with saying a Floridian, nothing's wrong with saying a Carolinian or a Carolinian, depending on who they say it differently. But nothing's wrong with it. But what I'm saying is the fact that you need to emphasize certain words, because that takes you out of the jurisdiction. Because if they say national citizen or state citizen, then neither is correct for two reasons. And I'll tell you, citizen refers to the Corporation of Washington, D.C. So that's District of Columbia. So if they say national citizen, that's just the proper term for what a citizen is. If they say a state citizen, they're just talking about somebody who's located in the state that's also indemnified to Washington. And you can't use private citizen either. You can say a private individual, because you have individuals that are incorporated as well as those individuals who are unincorporated. But a citizen is always incorporated. Does that make sense to everyone?
That makes sense to me. Thank you.
You're welcome. So then the next thing is when you talk about this is what I'm talking about. These are the various things that we're talking about. It's very nasty when you look at this stuff. So this is why I said to you. When they're using these words, you don't want to use none of that. So I'm going to show you what terminology you can use that keeps you purely within sovereignty, because bearing in mind, this is the thing, you're saying that you are from the spirit world, that you most certainly are absolute, and that you had a slight element of certain people being stupid, and then most certainly you have the situation where you're trying to correct it, but there's certain words you cannot use. Hold on a second. Yeah, thank you. This is why we say we got to look up these words, because the issue is that when they say citizen or agent, these are all terms to refer to people who are most certainly identified to the states. 1 second. Yes, exemption bracket not around the entire statement, just the zip code. So let's say if you know, like the zip code 90210, I know it sounds like kind of cheesy. I don't mean any disrespect by it, but if you put the rectangular brackets around it, that actually is the what do you call it? That is the correct way of saying that your house is actually on the land and it's not actually subject to the particular jurisdiction of Washington, much less any state satellite that also answers to. So this is why I said it categorical. When you want to say something that's an absolute, yes, thank you, 123 Main Street, name of state, and then 902, that's exactly how it is. So it's outside the jurisdiction. You don't get anybody trying to mess with you, because this is the issue. When you, exactly, abundant 3 dates. So this is why I said you do it that way. So that's the first thing that they know. Okay, so you know something. So you're pulling yourself out. So this is what's called political status declaration, because you have to do it with their house. And then you most certainly have got to do this with, I'd say with yourself. So when you have a jacket, this is what I was explaining beforehand in terms of the fact that you have part 1, which is the table of contents, part 2, which is your letter of intent. That's what your declaration is going to comprise. So you say exactly as to what it is that you do. Yes, you can, like say. So the second, and so I say again, part 1, table of contents. So you tell them what it is that you're looking for. Part 2. 1 second. Wait till King says that you can pay your 4 corner fence. Okay, so thank you very much, Mark. Just 1 second. So as I was highlighting beforehand, if you're going to do this correctly, it's part 1, which is most certainly your table of contents. Part 2, your letter of intent. Without the letter of intent, the document is unenforceable because you've not stated what your intentions are. And also, you haven't given appropriate instructions in the correct order that something is to proceed when you're giving absolute command. Part 3 is where you identify the secure party creditor. So, say your letter of intent, what you're using to pay for your means, what will your canon of law is that you will only be asset based, not cash based, for example, because that's what a sovereign does. They make the rest of the time they don't have cash. You only retain cash for the purposes that if something on the high seas doesn't actually have that particular agreement, that you could use the remainder of what you have for that purpose. So you can actually make that as a tenet of when you declare to the state, basically you're trying to ease yourself out of that system as much as possible. Then part 4. Sorry, 1 second.
Sorry.
No, that's okay. Part 4 is the documents of identification. So passport, driver's license. You just need those 2. You might want to put your social security number on that as well. If you're looking to just pivot and to remain effective in commerce, then you put your social security card with that as well. Otherwise, if you really want to come out the system, when you do come to actually do this, do not put that social security card, because that social security card that you're actually going to give it back, that's essentially in commerce your warrant card. You'll have to hand that back. If you want to cuff, that's what kills that's the physical thing, that when you hand it back, it actually kills taxation. And then 5, you have your documents of control, and I'll show you what that actually is. Then you have 6, where you actually activate any transaction, whether you need to discharge something, you need to cessate something, or you need to incept something. Then this is just additional instructions. So that would be what part 6 is for. And then part 7 is just to say that the document is concluded. That's exactly how you would draft the jacket on bond paper in the affirmative. And essentially what you would do as regards that is essentially once you have that done, then when you're trying to perfect your political status declaration, you put a UCC3 on it, because at first you literally need to notify them with that draft of document, or else they're not going to touch it. Do that first, they receive it. There's a certain way you actually can create your code, because there's a certain code that they give and say, I can tell you what that is. So I did this also with my aunt and a lot of other people with independent, but I mentioned 1 second, January 20th is an eternity. Why can't it not be sooner? You can also come to the Saturday live when I will actually be on live at 9 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. So most certainly, should you actually be available to come, please do. Okay, so the next thing is with finishing that, as I said, you got those 7 parts. That's what comprises your jacket. Put a UCC3 on the front of it, and then most certainly with the particulars that I'll actually show you how to correctly fill it out. That's what you do to put on the front of it. That's it. If you have any discharges you want to put in it, basically saying these are the last of the things that I have to tend to, aka you got certain things that you want to discharge. Say, right, this is what I do to clean it all up. You can put a plastic pouch inside, put the discharges in if you want to use the coupon. I've already mentioned to Ms. Lee exactly as to how correctly it is correctly to be done, in the sense of there are various ways you can have it done, but when you're using the absolute, that's the only one that I have actually seen, and I've seen a lot, where they don't actually send it back to people. There are other versions where they did it and they returned the document. Literally, it was not enforceable. As soon as they did it, they're like, okay, now they're retaining it. So does that make sense?
Yes, ma'am. And it also makes sense when you said the private individual, when you're framing it that way, because I do have my banker's EIN, and it's listed as the private banker's or individual. Individual private banker's EIN. So when
That's
you said
right.
those two, yeah, that made sense. Thank you.
You're very much welcome.
And I wanted to chime in. You said, do you utilize cash? You were talking about cash just in case. And I do know cash says for all debts, legal tender for all debts, public and private. Do you know how to utilize cash appropriately in any situation? And can you, in your private capacity with this correction, discharge debts and keep yourself off the high seas?
Okay, the way you would use cash, if you're purely in the private, I have to put it this way: the only time you can use it is most certainly if certain forms of transaction do not have the. I'm so sorry. Could you mute? Sorry, it's just Thank you. Okay, so when it comes to being in the private, if you have cash, it's what I put as a contingency also within my political status declaration if I'm actually interfere with anyone, because there's certain countries where you want to try and use your particular means and you've got the perfect status declaration, but there's sometimes where they just basically want to be belligerent. So you're using it as a backup just in case the worst you got. You can still have the opportunity to use cash in an emergency situation. That's originally what the cash is used for. So if there's a situation where you can actually do that, the high seas is an emergency, so you can utilize it there. So if you've got anything left, you just put it in the bank account. What you would do is just charge that bank account. They give you a new set of serial numbers for that particular account, because basically you're trying to remove the debt signature from that account. That's what it is, because that's what I did. And so I had this, sorry?
You put verbiage in your paperwork stating long ahead of time and with your status that would cover you in case you needed to use cash in an emergency situation on the high seas.
Yes.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
Because I had to look at that from the point of view, supposing if you do have somebody that does that, because you don't have a situation where if they try to stop you from using the private means, because there were certain people that weren't quick on the uptake, you know what I mean, in terms of doing what they're supposed to do as per honoring the instructions that came from Central Command. Some of them still were doing the business, I'll try and wear this person out and whatever. It's only until I attended things in 2016. You notice everybody got whipped into shape, because after that I didn't have any complaints about that. So this is what I was saying about rolling with the punches, because that could have been quite serious, and in many cases it was. So the next thing is most certainly as per the particular document, once you put that as a tenant, you'll notice it because I'll be reading that document on Saturday. That's basically what it is, because you have to let them know that you're aware that you're living in a system that most certainly is under foreign occupation, and you're polite. You're removing yourself from it, but making sure that you've cleaned you cleaned the file, you've made sure everything's optimal so they can see it. They've got no objections. So if you want to pull out of that state, you want to pull out of Admiralty, you can actually do it, but with the particular correct way of actually saying, I'm handing this stuff back, so I'm not working for you no more, but I make sure I cleaned everything up first. Next thing after that, then most certainly you just await the matriculating time spent when you send it by recorded, traced, and signed mail. Registered is basically the same thing as being recorded, because if it's certified, the problem is it's like with the certified check. You don't want to do that.
All right, everybody. Kick-ass Panda, you are kick-ass, my sister. I love you. You guys, I am totally burnt right now. I don't see how, you know what? I hope to see how you do it one day, that I have that much energy in my vibrations as you do, my love. I have to go because I'm not retaining anything right now. So I love everybody and thank you for the privilege of being around you guys. I really appreciate you guys and the information and the energy you've shared. Hope to see you guys around soon.
Well,
You too. Love you lots.
All right.
thank you.
Thank you. All right.
Panda, I had an idea about something that's been about our ledgers that's been interesting me when it comes to credits and debits.
Okay.
So, do you have a Cesta KV trust attached to yours? Or you're completely out. So you're saying you cleared that ledger completely and you abandoned it?
What I did is I reclassified it. I basically said, because they never paid me a day in my life, that's basically I put it, because I put it respectfully, because I never was paid throughout the time of indemnification to the classifications of Admiralty, because I cited quite a lot. I'm taking, and I cite what it is that I'm actually taking, reclassified that out of the system as most certainly consideration for what most certainly I had not actually received in prior citation. So the aforementioned trust, because the process of the central bank is anything that's the cash you're taking out the system, they can't let that cash come out the system. What they do is they actually conduct a gold purchase order, and however much is actually in there, they just basically put it back into gold.
Okay. And so basically what I'm trying to figure out is it seems like when we basically balance these ledgers, your social security account, your Cesta QV trust, whatever we want to call it here, you have credits on one side and debits on the other. I see, so when it comes to governments and power and control, I see a value to the debit side for them. I'm putting myself in their eyes. If we have a bunch of people that have now cleared their debts and they still have credits and they're starting to access their credits, we no longer have value for them. So from what I've gathered is, of course, governments do not like people that do this. What are some of the things that you've seen when it comes to clearing these things? If you were to clear your accounts and do this, are people generally left alone? Does that make sense what I'm trying to say? Because if you have a body of people that's in debt, if a body of people is in debt and those numbers are high and they have these accounts that shows they're in debt, that is their level of control. If you're not in debt to anyone and you're only you're a walking bank, you're just walking credit, they still have value to you, but only if you're utilizing it in their favor. And once you stop utilizing it in their favor, now they're like, okay, we got to take this clown out or these clowns out. What is your experience with this process and, just kind of backlash from government or banking agencies internationally, domestically? Go ahead.
You are correct that someone's value is different, but it's classed in this way. When someone is indemnified, they have a significant amount of money, but it's classified in the indemnified sense, the fact that it is presented in the public. So that means there's a limit as to how much they could actually have at any one time. If they are able to reclassify this and put it back in the treasury, you're putting it back to its original value, so it goes up in value. Because don't forget, when one is indemnified, they are reduced by 90% capacity, because don't forget, they've got to be reduced to the vibration that's in hot keeping with the nation state, which is 10%, because during war, 90% of the country can't operate. That's what it is. So because of that, 90% of what it is that they are has basically got to be frozen, if you know what I mean. So if they try to reverse it, they're going back, they're giving substance, they then told the 90% that was lost, put everything back into the treasury that is appropriate. Only the one checking account left open to handle a certain amount of cash is actually left open, but everything from because that particular account, you don't destroy it. What it is because when you're saying you're taking all your assets out, they just literally automatically put that account, because of the fact you're saying you're pulling out, that they actually just put it back into the treasury account. So those notes are actually used to conduct a purchase order, and then they put it back in the treasury resource account. So therefore, all the assets, because you've done it the way that you've put all your assets back in, you clean that record, you've actually increased your value by 90%. So you're worth more off than you are on. Because a lot of people say, oh, but I've got this, sure, I've got to stay on touch. They don't understand that with the trust is a public citation when they're being publicly quoted on the stock exchange. But a sovereign is worth more than somebody who's traded on the stock market, because
Worth more to whom and what entity?
I said that's the thing. They're worth more in the general sense of what admiralty is, because you see, a sovereign possesses innate spiritual capacity, as you are aware, because of their innate ability to tend to things of higher vibration, greater capacity. Thus, if it's in the matrix, it's actually limited because it's not the same high vibration. It's like analog versus digital. Do you understand what I mean? If you're a sovereign, originally you're analog. You know how rich and pure that signal is. But anyhow, you're in the matrix.
You're just walking equity. You're walking asset. There's no offset.
So you see what I'm saying? So this is the reason why I said, when people say, well, what do you do? What's your experience? I said, I'll tell you what that is. When you're up and you actually say, no, because the whole point for you in this is where they try to, where people where they try to confuse people, because you see, when you had that account done, yes, you had multiple accounts issued for you. It wasn't just one, it's multiple, because you have to, every transaction has to be redeemed. Otherwise, you've got ministers that are actually going to be sending officers after all of these transactions, and basically the police will be showing up at your door. So you don't do that. So what happens is the fact that when you say that you're pulling out what I serve people, I say, discharge, or anything that you don't need to use, discharge the lot of it and put it back in the treasury. That's not supposed to stay out for however many years that you've had this. And so, and I know life has happened, but I'm saying that's not supposed to stay out, because their job, when they allowed you to have the use of the credit card or other citations, they were supposed to put that money back into the treasury account. They didn't. They actually sold it on. So they stole from the central bank. So when you actually discharge it,
So that seems to be intentional to me then. They stole from the central bank. That's what they're doing via the discharging. Am I getting that correctly? They're not putting the credit back into the treasury. They're keeping it out in commerce as debt.
correct. So when the person's discharging, what they're doing is they're exposing the fraud, because what they're doing is they're pulling everything that's of that particular original asset, putting it back in the treasury. So it highlights the secure party creditor has done their job as befitting the law, but what the person who was the issuer of that credit card did not, because they allowed the asset to get sold on. So they got stolen, and so they stole from the central bank. So the central bank goes after them, not you.
Wow. Okay. Wow. That's huge. They don't go after the fry cook. They go after McDonald's.
Thank you. So the thing about that is so because of that, you notice that you do that for all of the things. Like I said, you keep 1 or 2 checking accounts, because sometimes people need that. Keep that open with the liquid cash, because you can almost have it use the cash as you just discharge the account. They just give it literally a new set of routing numbers. That's all they give them a new set of routing numbers. That's fine, as of course any cash you have left, and you can still utilize it as you would if you wanted to work. But the difference is, back in the day, sovereigns of old used to work in absolute form, not in a constitution. The constitutional got encumbrances. Absolute, they don't got no encumbrances. So in this case, you discharge everything first, putting it back in the treasury, because then you're actually equalizing the nation state's books, because anything that's of that type of amount's credit's not supposed to be in the public. 6 months to a year maximum. They're not supposed to be out longer than that. So when they stole it, put it around and done that, they've actually been put in the state of danger, because it has a limited bond. So if anything's outside of it, that's where things have gotten quite nasty in American history. So particularly United States history. So the thing about that is that after you've done that, you discharge it, then you highlight the particular element where you go, okay, right, well, I'm actually, you cite that I'm actually checking out. This is exactly who it is that I actually am. But what you're doing is using the form to say, use that to make the last correction within the system. But in that particular, if you're going to sign up, put that Social Security, the Social Security card, what you do is you tell them most certainly that you don't want it. So you take a Xerox of what it used to have, and then actually put it in that particular jacket. So you're literally saying you're returning them. So the situation is, once you return that, then what it is, you're saying that you no longer want to be actually an entity that's subordinate to the Vatican. What that does, when you pull that thing out, and you say, and you're using a UCC3, say this is such as a remit, and there's a certain name that particular document has, you're completely pulling out. The first thing that you do, if you want to be effective in commerce, you say, no, just want to pivot, then you put the UCC3. But if you're completely pulling out, you don't need a UCC3 at all. You still conduct the same transactions of discharge, so to show that you've cleaned you've done your best to most certainly rectify the particular record as per admiralty. Okay, and the next thing about that is that you've actually said, right, now I've actually got everything the way I've put it. Everything financially is clean. I don't have anything to talk about, even if it's such a thing as a utility bill, because they most certainly can be settled unless you've renegotiated with them at a particular time, and it's the terms renegotiated or traded with them. You say, I'd like to actually retain your services for X, but only with treasury accounts of such. But make sure you speak with the financial officer. Don't do it with anybody else. So that's the thing that's actually done via post. It's not done over the phone. Over the phone, it's the high seas. They can't mention anything of funds. Whereas if you do things by postal, you can describe whatever you want. That's in the private. So you can get that sorted out, and then most certainly that's where I show you about most certainly creating your. You've already got funds, then now it's just to create the generational wealth. So there are certain things you want to purchase, you actually will apply your exemption, saying these particular assets are yours. So you would most certainly reclassify them. So there's a certain way I show you how to do that. It's not after that you say, right, I'm taking these assets. You give this specific direction as to what they are. And then you see most certainly that's taken out of the system, and you will not ever in your life actually serve admiralty. That's basically what it is for those who've done it correctly. And I have to tell you something, the number of people who had their political status declaration in that absolute fashion actually done was 456. Inclusive of my own presentation to date, that the Crown actually highlighted that they're recognized. So it tells you how many people actually made a shot at it, and how many people actually got at it.
That's it, Panda?
That was it at the time of 2013.
Oh, okay. I thought you meant today. I wonder how much it is today. What do you ask me?
I'm not going to, how should I put this? I'm not going to actually say anything yet, because I'll tell you the reason as to why it is, because there was a lot of language, like I was explaining before, in terms of what actually happened. Too many things. People use, oh yes, well, I'm a sovereign human being. You're not a human being. A human being is a taxable entity. That's why they call it human resources. Right. You know what I'm saying? So that's why they can't. So that's why they can't say that. So this is 1 second. 1 second. Somebody wrote something in the chat. It's an attention grabber. They're supposed to send your securities back and tell you what's wrong with them. They don't even do that. Of course they don't, because it's fraud. If they tell you what's wrong, they highlight the fact that they've been dipping in somebody's closet. They don't want to They don't want to be saying, "Hey man, I actually did this to your stuff," and you actually cut their fingers off. They just don't want that. So you could say as much as you want, and you go, "Would you cut the fingers off with a cigar cutter?" So this is the thing. So I'm saying they don't want that. So that's why they keep their mouth shut. So that's you can understand that. So that's why I said there's a certain way you do that, because bear in mind, you got to clean it up, because they won't do it. They've been spending too many years doing that. So that's the reason why we say tell them they're not going to do it. They're going to keep that brow silence, because they know what is how long they've been benefiting from that, and that thing should only go back within the first year of
exactly.
You see what I'm saying? So, and also the other thing, when they tell people, if you get a credit card, you got to pay with cash. You've literally been interrupting the line. You use the credit card and you take the full amount out of it. Then most certainly you let them claim the insurance, and that's the end of it. That's how credit cards are supposed to be used. But then they told them
the money and the card.
No, that's exactly. This is what they do. They go, "Oh, this is a credit card. Use it." This is the way to go. This is the credit card. Do it this way. No, if you've got a balance and they're giving you that, take the whole cash out. If you're going to do that, then because of what it is, either you discharge it or you let the insurance on the back of it tend to it. Because if they don't receive anything at a certain time, they can claim the insurance. They can claim the insurance that pays for the whole thing, but you tell them exactly as to what that is. So this is what I'm saying. These are the two remedies. But they tell them, "Oh, use it in incremental stages, continue to pay with," because you're supplying of it 3 to however many times worth of credit when you're using that credit card. So you've had it over years, you can see exactly how much that credit card is worth now in terms of numerical. But the problem is now you've got to nullify that debt signature, because none of that, when you've been paying it to them, has actually gone back to the treasury. Because why? CAFRs, or depository accounts.
That's what they are.
Those particular deposit accounts are nowhere within the particular citation of the state. So you see exactly why I'm mentioning this. People have to be very careful. So this is why I said it's for the experience of those they were left to learn. Said, hey, well, because we've done it correctly, they've recognized it, haven't got anything to be concerned about, and they properly do it. They completely live in a fashion that is distinct from the system. They don't have anything to do with it at all, save the fact that if you're talking about using an airplane or something like that, where it's essentially an admiralty operation, you would still need to keep your identity documents, but because you reclassify them, they give you perfect political status, annotation highlighting that you're an international distinguished dignitary, that you are classified as tax exempt ab initio because the classification of your birth. So this is what I'm saying, that you actually, people say, well, then what do I do after that? Keep yourself in the private, negotiate. You have your institutions already. You already have purchased things that you can use. You've got your company, you've purchased it, taken that out of the system. So that's an exemption. Was one of your elements of the exemption belt. You've done that for the safer transportation. You've done that for domiciliary. You've done it for a myriad of other things. So you basically
when they're coming after you, Oh, when they're coming after you, Panda, that's when they're trying to liquidate it.
Well, if they are, well, that's why I say again, if you do it in a particular, now that I'm no, hold on a second, don't do that. This is the reason why I said, if they try to come after you at a particular time, it's only because someone didn't do something right.
5
so
years.
To begin with, sorry?
5 years?
No, I'll put it this way. If you try to tend to bills, you got to make sure that when you actually send documents, you've got to ask them, are they aware of such a particular law? Because most of those people are just going to pretend and they don't know, because I never heard of that particular act. Like I said, they're taught to lie real good. So the thing about that is,
sorry, I'm confused.
when you're trying to pay your bills, okay, you're trying to nullify, you're trying to create a particular remedy. They tell people to do things in an incorrect way. That's why the first thing when I say to, do you know this act? No, I don't know that act. They do know what that particular act is. Otherwise, you can have them arrested for impersonating a corporate officer, because quid pro quo means you only get paid for you only get paid for the work that you do. It's not about you only get paid for the work that you said you did. This is the issue that's going on with Admiralty. So the thing is what I'm saying is that if you are going to have this thing nullified, you would do it in the correct way. You say, right, okay, you gave me the money, right? This is how it reads. It's like when you get a mortgage. The account reads at zero until the credits are actually put in it. The moment that you take it out, that account reads at zero again. And most certainly that should be the end of it. And then with a certain amount of days, because you have not put cash into it, you've not subordinately monetized it, thereby changing its nature. The insurance at the back where it says, if you can't pay for anything, bear in mind, you cannot pay for anything. So the insurance, when it says, if for any reason you cannot pay, then they take the insurance. They won't be able to take the cash as well. You see where I'm going with this? Because you got the cash, you got what you wanted out of it. You just don't pay the credit card. But because that's what they're supposed to do, and then you actually to notify them that, oh yes, this particular citation they've been notified by this, please correct the record.
How do you cash out a credit card?
If let's say let's say you actually applied for a credit card, technically you're supposed to do this by post as well. Go and make a private arrangement with the bank. Tell them exactly as to what it is that you need. Now, a lot of people use the application, and the problem is with that particular application is that fundamentally they have a situation. Excuse me a second. Fundamentally, they have a situation where they, sorry, I almost lost my train of thought. Okay, well, I was talking, yeah, okay. The reason why it is that certain people have not done things the way that they're supposed to, it's all about seeing most certainly what they can liquidate, seeing most certainly they can get out of it, because there's such this particular chase. So this is the reason why I said to you, if you're going to implement it, do it the correct way, that you just only have one thing. You applied for that particular use via the post, but because they told people, again, this is what we said about a junctional transaction, they went to the high street to negotiate, they went by the application. Because you remember the question we had before, he says, well, I had that, they kept my document and they did do this. I said, it's a junctional transaction. You wanted to do it absolutely, but what they told you to do is to go to the high seat to do it. You go to the high seat, they're always going to make that statement that your back ass broke. Even though you're wealthy, they still going to tell you that particular thing is the case. So as it is that particular case, what's actually going to happen is you find you've got a lot of encumbrances. But if you go in the private, they don't teach people that when you are effective in commerce, you could most certainly go to the bank privately and actually speak with the aforementioned department. That most certainly, as it is a private matter, you will not be subject to the law of applications and so on. It's a breach of your rights. So when they're trying to say, oh, go and attend this application, you're not supposed to be doing any of that. So this is why when people haven't understood it, they go, but I want to live like that. That's you saying you want to be a mercer then. You're a mercenary, you're a merchant. That's basically what they're trying to say. Then you have to live that way. But if you're saying, I don't want to do none of that. I have my private means. I just want to exempt all of them, basically whether it's a permanent exemption or not. And I want to actually tend to my family. So people say, how do you get paid after that? I said, you got to create your own economic strategy. When you create that, basically meaning purchase things that will actually tend to your needs, whether it's homes, whether it's businesses, all those things that you do with that private account, and then most certainly highlight it, this is what you're actually going to do. That will tend to what you need. But the only time you purchase those is after that political status declaration, because then when you go to them, you say, I have this, they go, yep, the person's got what they need. What exactly is it that you want? And then you go, well, this is this, but you have that private, and they said, not a problem, and then the deal's done. As opposed to you applying and speaking to the wrong people, and basically you're sending mixed messages, and therefore when it gets to the central command, they're like, and they just pierce their lips. In other words, saying you haven't got it right.
So when are they trying to liquidate?
They always try to liquidate literally in excess of 30 calendar days.
I thought you said 5 years earlier.
No, it's a maximum of 5 years. They're trying to do that beforehand.
Okay. I need to go back and change my notes because I didn't hear that part. So it's
No worries.
Okay. But if it's coming up to 5 years and they didn't do it, they're trying to do it.
They're trying to do it 5 years. You won't see anything, and then I'm just saying in terms of past transactions, you won't see anything that's there beyond 5 years. But like with the mortgage, where they say claim your mortgage within 5 years because if not, the bank sells it. That's to do with the abandoned assets, the bonificante department, which comes after being the next stage, which is classified as politically or clinically dead after 10 years. But the year 5 is to do with les droits d'amoralité, literally meaning unclaimed assets. So they wait for that law. They go, oh yeah, this is classified as that. Now put it in a particular room where they don't have to declare it now. They just go, oh yeah, in that department they can wait for a good number of years. Then 10 say, yeah, now you can wait another 5 years, you can take it. So they know they got a lot of credit that they're building up just by not telling people things.
Yeah, and that's the problem.
And then damaging people's credit on top of that.
Right.
So
and when they deny us to our own credit, that's a whole nother topic.
It is, exactly. So this is why I say this is some quite complex stuff. And I didn't really like it when people were going on and saying, it's like, hey, you're supposed to be able to do it, and you're not getting it right. Like Spencer mentioned, they're trying to mix things, and you got to be careful with that. That's a very serious line. So this is why I say to people, I'm going to show you another way of doing it. It's not that you guys are not awesome, because you are. You understand that that's a complex system, and it's very complex to navigate. Okay, and the way that you're doing it, you're at the advanced stage. But what it is, there's just some link that most certainly you didn't have, because essentially it's dependent upon people's applicative study. It depends upon what resources are available. Because sometimes people say, oh, they didn't study hard enough. No, they studied hard enough, but it's a matter of what they had access to at the time, and whether or not that comprised of conflicting, whether or not that comprised of conflicting information or conflicting citations.
Mm-hmm.
So this is why I said to people, if you're going to do this document correctly, the way you have to do it is I show you the jacket. So I'm going to show you how that jacket is actually made. So we get it. And I said again, and I said exactly what it's actually comprised of. So I'm saying, this is how it is that you do. I've got the electronics, so I'll actually put that on. And so what you do is then once you actually apply put the plastic sheet in, if you're making any final discharges, if you're saying you want to be completely effective in commerce, then you have to put a UCC3 in front of your white paper, because you're saying you're still staying within the demise of, but you're creating as many easements as possible by releasing a certain number of mechanisms there. So that's partial. Okay, that's what they call partial political status ratification in the positive, whereas the other one is complete, because essentially you're saying doing the other thing, and basically you're saying that but before you did that, you made sure that you tended to all the things that you needed, but beforehand. And then because of the fact that you'd actually done that, then was certainly after, if you would have purchased the property, yes. Does that make sense? Anyone? You don't have to claim the securities, you just need to discharge them. If we're talking about security instruments, they already are located within your vault, so you don't have to worry about that. When you conduct the discharge, you just like basically anything that was made of your essential assets with and or without your consent. That's at the bit where you say you're taking all those. Sorry, I was saying, thank you. Is it clearer now?
Yeah, it was lagging. It's good now. I'm like, was my brainwave doing that? That's what my brain felt like, Panda. That's so funny. That was a perfect projection out of my brain.
Excuse me 1 second.
We explain again, please. Which part?
I think it's the most recent part. When you most certainly, because he was talking about reclaiming. What is it that you do? Because what about reclaiming the security? I said in your document, you can actually see you have assets which you are claiming all those that have been made with your essential self, with and or without your consent, and including securities, bonds, fiduciary, and security. Basically, you're saying what your terms are, that they have to recompensate you. So the fact that you're able to use these when you come out the system is because you're saying, you got to pay me this, man. You didn't give a liquidation. They don't do liquidation now. Before they used to do that, you got to do a lot of dance and whatnot. So this is why I said, if you want to have the business of actually turning to X, you most certainly need to do this part first. You do it, say that I'm claiming these particular things. You've made sure you've discharged everything, so there's no objection. They're not saying that you owe the government any money, because they'll try and play that one. And then most certainly what you do smack after that is, as I said, the way that I mentioned in the 7 parts, what you should have actually completing the argument, and then most certainly you file it appropriately with the bond, with an envelope also made of bond paper. It's actually by recorded sign and trace mail, otherwise known as registered mail. Use an independent courier. Please don't actually use that particular form, because the only problem is when you're using their grid, it's the fact it's a different type of vibration. You want to have something that's distinct from that. One, then you give them 5 consecutive days, no more than that. After it's written, you'll know it's ratified just simply because of the fact of what happens afterwards. You'll just look at your particular record. When I did my aunt's documents, because like I said, everything that she had discharged, the first set she couldn't enforce because of certain technicalities in the household. But then 2014, she actually did it to the whole history. Then when it came to 2016, she says, no, I don't need to discharge anything. I just was wondering what was going on. So I said, you just need to do certain things. And so I said, what you do is you create a new security interest. And what is that? So because when you put it in the treasury, they all went with it, because that was the circuit. You got to create a new one. And I said, it's just very simple. It's just your control cards. You just put those in there. And then most certainly you say to the particular amount and whatnot. The bank knows to monetize that. They don't give it a credit value, because you're saying because you're not saying that it's funds. You're actually saying that it's the absolute stuff. So in this particular case, because you're doing that, they read it and they say, okay, well, because you've given that, then most certainly we can see you've discharged everything. So everything's reading in the 0. You're supposed to reduce to 0. Okay, is those accounts on the high seas generally are not supposed to have larger sums of money in it. And the last thing is the most certainly that once you reduce to 0 and they've put everything the way this, they say, okay, this particular person wanted this particular item. This particular person actually said they wanted XYZ. Well, we can actually let that go ahead. What they did with my aunt is that they actually changed their credit rating from 450 to 947, and that was in 5 days, because they were able to trace exactly what I told her. And as I did exactly what I told her. I would draft her the document that actually highlights exactly as to what filings that she most certainly had, exactly as to what political status she actually has, highlighting that most certainly she should not have had the negative citations applied to her. And last but not least, she provided a new security, but it's one that did not indemnify her, and I show people how to do. You don't, as I said, and you don't need to have multiple signatures notarized and whatnot, because each time you go and get those people to do it, you're putting yourself back in the dock again. And so basically after that, you complete the other areas of the jacket. If it hasn't been, then you seal it and then you ship it with the other designated method. Then you tell the central, then that basically central bank reads it. It's like, Fed, or aka the Fed. I use the term central bank in the neutral citation, because even in Asia, I don't use the term central bank. It's just because the fact when you're talking about its headquarters, that's the term that you have to use when you're actually speaking across. So that's basically what it is. So I said, right, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8.
Headquarters.
Sorry, say that again?
Headquarters is the correct term, not central bank.
That's the term that headquarters I use. As I say, I use those that overseas. I only use central bank when it comes to speaking at certain areas of admiralty where that term is required. Because essentially, like if anybody's seen World Business Report, that's on a particular channel on the international circuit, and they always use the term. That's a term that's used at division. So essentially, when you say, "Oh yes, central," nation states are moving away from centralization. They can't do that for obvious reasons. So essentially what I got my aunt to do is basically after she cleaned the aspect of showing that she's honorable, then she actually creates a new asset. She creates a new asset, they go and value it. So because of the fact she said, I'm doing that, most certainly to tend to being levied against all my assets, well, her assets to be precise, and then and then she says exactly how long that is. It's not a commercial one, it's actually an absolute one. So that amount stays within her treasury account. It was sent off. What was a negative was actually in the positive. My mother's was sent in the same jacket. Or say box, because we sent a big ass box to the
going
department.
to the same trust.
Sorry?
Because it's going to the same trust.
Well, no, because it's going to the same bank, because they're related by blood. They can actually tend to applicate to several applications or several corrections.
Oh my gosh. I did not know that. That's amazing information.
Thank you. So that's basically what it is. So because you can actually do that, that's why they did that. So they looked at mom's discharges, because hers was easier because she did all of hers in 2013. There's very little that she had to do in 2016. So by the time all that stuff was actually said, I said, just get a little bit and whatnot. And then I said it. Get it right. If you're going to clean this up, you discharge all of the assets that you don't need. You only basically need your checking accounts. These things are not supposed to stay in the public, because when you were given it in the political status declaration in the absolute, you're not supposed to have cash floating about. When they fractionalized that, that's because of the fact somebody was nasty and actually flipped the script on you, physically causing you to be physically flipped, as it were. So then you had the negative, that you got all that to cancel. So to cancel that, put you back in the program, say, nope, not having any of that stuff, thank you very much. So you clean that tract. Second thing, in terms of tending to that particular tract, and the reason why I use this term, correct, because there's something incorrect, because this is the thing, you restore your political status declaration, yes, but you correct errors that are in the system, because if we don't correct the judgment, and this is what it is, then most certainly you can't restore your political status. So that's the bit that I'm actually on about. So people go, oh, wait, so let me get it right. You said, so this is what we're saying. Correct the errors, because they've made disrespectful citations. You say, no, correct the errors. Then the political status declaration most certainly can be restored, because what you've done is said, I'm making sure that even though this didn't happen with my consent, I'm going to clean everything up. Now I've actually nullified it. I don't have any of this to actually worry about. Now I'm certainly giving the absolute instruction. This is what I'm going to do, creating a new asset, which that is going to be put in the private market. It will not be quoted on the stock exchange. Then the next thing is, because that's the difference in terms of how you actually do things. And the next thing about it is, when you have to all the particular parts of your jacket, you send it away. You send it away, you ship it, that's it. It's been jettisoned to the particular Federal Reserve. Next thing what you actually do is you just await the 5 days, and then you just check the parts of your public record that most certainly have been corrected. And they do say, with regards to what you need, it may take up to 6 months. This is the thing sometimes, when as long as it's just that to deal with, you haven't got much to do. So this is exactly as to why it is they say you got to do that. You got to do it correctly. So that's the one. So like I said, my mothers, my aunts, my cousins, they were all sent in one, including my uncle's probate. Everybody got their first word. Wow, we never had stuff like this for ages. Wow, what did you tell them? I said, I just basically corrected what was most certainly incorrect in the particular public. I drafted it that way. You still got your new securities, but everything else that's old, that shouldn't have been out there because they're only supposed to be out there for a year, put them all back in the treasuries. That means everything has been reverted back to its status of gold, because you can't because they say, oh, it's just a note. That's it. It's not a note. You're not buying debt. Excuse me, it's not a note, you're not buying debt. What it is the fact that you have a gold account, but they don't tell you, so they just say, oh no, it's just your certificate of trust. I went, that's only the public side of it, dude. There's the bit behind it, that's the stuff that ensures you have something. So that's why they say, okay, what's your experience now since you've completely come out of it? Well, my citation is that that's how I purchased my house. That's how I enforced a lot of things. But when it comes to certain aspects of central governance, I've actually done that. So in that particular citation, and you say again, with that particular citation, my response is yes, I'm only going to be maintaining it by that. So that when I actually said to you beforehand, I said, hold on a second, let me go. And let me go and just highlight this particular point. And you went, okay, what is it? Now, this is the name. Look it up. This is the city. Go look it up. What do you see? Oh, okay. I see who this person is. So you see that what I'm talking about is the fact that it has that there originally. You can see the difference. You look at the citation. They used to say British citizen, and then because of the fact that I nullified aspects of admiralty, it now only says Indian, but it doesn't say citizen. They use the term national publicly because that's the face of commerce. But when you go into the affirmation nation state, there's no PAN card, because PAN card is a social security, is the Indian equivalent of the social security card. There isn't any of that. That all got dissolved. So the thing is, when you want to purchase something, you can only use the treasury. You can't actually go and use cash. That's another nuance of IML. I mean, you use it in India, whereas you use it in the United States. You can use both, even though you've given the exception that if it's an overseas account, we can kind of allow it. But in India, if you've actually been, it could be completely politically status declared in the affirmative or in the absolute. Do not use cash anymore after that, because technically speaking, you're not allowed to. Even if it's an exemption, they say, yeah, but try not to do that unless it's a foreign account, because then they can say you can just say that for a matter of emergencies. So that's what it was. The people who actually had it done, they went, yep, they know how it done. They did not have people coming on their door and doing anything stupid. Unless it's like an exempt scenario where somebody was just literally doing something and being stupid. I say again, they didn't have anything of that particular kind. They were still in their particular houses. They just made sure that they highlight that on account of what it is that they had earned throughout Admiralty, they have the right to a parcel of land, so they have the right to a myriad of things. So this is why I said afterwards, you got to know how to actually speak to a telecommunications company, mention under this particular act X, Y, Z. Then you actually say, well, do you actually accept such applications? Yes, we do actually do that. And then most certainly you understand that's your economic strategy being created. You purchase things, you negotiate, you negotiate is the term that you use in the public, but otherwise you say, now you're just what? You're just contracting, you're just instructing. It's like, this is the particular instruction I'd like to implement. Do you most certainly accept this? Yes, we do. And then most certainly you see what happens. So this is why I said to people, it's quite simple once you're taught how to do that, or once you know how to do it is another way of putting it. But the thing is, it's the finite details that one could spend a long time being distracted.
So you can't get securities until you are in your proper.
You literally won't be able to, because don't forget, what you're saying is because of the crap that they put out there against you, you got to correct all of it. So that's why I say discharge, because that's the strongest way to do it. You're not negotiating with anybody. You're just saying, no, I'm pulling this stuff back. Don't care what happens to you, because you people hung me out to dry. So that's basically what it is that you do. No, but you know what I mean. That's what they did.
Oh, totally.
Sweat it.
I love it.
You know. So this is the thing. So they go, oh, no, I'm not having any of that. So that's basically what you do. So then after that, all it is that you're saying effectively. So when you say discharge, you're pulling those securities back. Yep, and put it back in the treasury, because that's the understanding when you handled it. Anything that you negotiate's got to go back in the treasury literally within a year, because don't forget they pay taxes every year. So they need to make sure that if it's in the treasury, that means that the nation state doesn't have to come out and issue bills to handle with certain things that are out there. So these companies are not actually helping their nation. They're actually wrecking the nation, because all these things should be put back in the treasury, because you only have it for limited use. Then put it back, because it's all of these loans you're making money for them. They're not giving you anything, but because they told you something about
consideration.
Exactly. So this is the thing. 1 second. Okay, if no cash, what will be used to distribute?
You're trading with the enemy. That's what's going on.
Right.
You're not dealing with the treasury. You're trading with the enemy, and that's why she says what she says. She says, okay, step one is the status. Everybody wants to do all this shit. They don't have this. They're not in the proper status. They're not in the proper office.
Right.
They're operating from the office of person, which makes you a subject. So they're looking at you crazy as hell. You're coming, no, for real, because you're coming.
I know, you're right.
You're not doing no official business, no office to office.
You're not getting anywhere.
Yeah, but I mean, how am I supposed to take you serious? I'm hollering at the CFO from a military jurisdiction, and that's why they know.
I know, you're right.
How you address them? Shit, you giving them piles and piles of fucking paperwork. 1099s, all this crazy ass shit. Mailing their ass 10 and 15 times. and you're a belligerent, a combatant, an enemy, a rebel, legally deceased and illegally deceased and legally disabled, and don't know it. Why? Because someone else told you, oh, the negotiable instruments. So everyone's going to everyone's going to go to bills of exchange. Ain't even read the Bill of Exchange Act. Ain't read none UCC. But they want the bag. And like Panda was saying about, like, you have to know accounting.
Right.
When the shit do get released to you, you got to be able to know how to do your thing and recycle what's given to you.
Right. Okay, that
It
is
just
so
depends
true.
on what you. It just depends on how are you doing it.
Mm-hmm.
How are you set up?
And that's why it's hard. Oh, go ahead.
There's two governments in the post office.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you have de facto and the de jure. And on the de facto,
private.
yeah, but and it's just how you're mailing. Like when you're mailing certified mail, that's USPS shit.
Mm-hmm.
You're falling right back in that military jurisdiction unless you change up the contract and you know how to do, how to change the terms and conditions of that contract. But registered is where it's at. It's been there.
This is funny, but it's not funny, Coach said. I agree.
Yeah, but people going down. Oh, I need the firm book and and go down.
I need all these things, but I don't even know.
They don't even have a clue of what they're doing. Oh, I just want to have it for one rainy day when I decide to write something. Maybe I'll use that for some scrap paper. But this is the thing. But I'm for real. Like
I know you are.
Everything started at the post office, though. Everyone's mailing. Everyone's doing this mailing. And like I say, you have to know about the military and know what's been done. Like I say, the Buck Act of 1940. They gave everyone zip codes and put everyone under two letter codes.
Tanya
to make
says
everyone taxpayers. To make everyone taxpayers and everyone deemed to be living in Washington D.C. So, that's it. You gotta have all these people. Oh, I got this process.
Oh my gosh, I know.
I got this process.
And then if they're not getting results, they don't know why.
No, they know exactly why they're not getting results. Because they're not fucking doing it. Okay? That's how you're not getting results. You're not doing
it right.
No, they're not doing it, period. So, yeah, because, and like I say, me, I'm not, and that's what I say, it's a whole nother mindset when you have to be in the mindset of you're the master, they the servants. You're the head, they're the tail. You're the lender, they're the borrower. You have to have that mindset. For all these years I've been at this, everyone that does all this bona fide ass bonds and bills of exchange to the Treasury, they sit around there waiting for the Treasury, scratching their ass, waiting for the Treasury to do something.
Right.
Them motherfuckers are servants. Them motherfuckers are servants. So like, oh shit, okay, if you're gonna send me this bill of exchange and this and that, I'm assuming and presuming that you know what the fuck to do.
Right, but
and that's it.
We're all on our personal journeys, so it doesn't matter if somebody wants to be a secured party creditor, or maybe they don't, or maybe they want to send in a shit ton of letters.
Well, first of all, there's no secured party creditor. That's first and foremost.
Oh,
it's only a secured party or a creditor. There's no such thing as secured party creditor.
Okay.
And like I say, if you're gonna keep on doing the same shit, and individuals not reading it. They're not reading anything about the UCC. They're not reading anything about negotiable instruments. And that's a problem. And like I said, when they get jammed up and go down one of them rabbit holes, the state of the federal penitentiary, they're going to blame whoever taught them, whoever told them that. So,
right. But that's none of your business, though. Like if that's all that they're going to learn and they're not going to pick up a book or read into anything, then that's on them. Like, don't bring that negativity here.
No, I'm not bringing any negativity. I'm bringing actual and factual. People they're not reading and they're not knowing what they're doing.
Yeah, actual and factual.
And the shit that
right.
Yeah, but the thing about it is that everything that people are trying to do and stuff, all that shit's private.
Right.
All that shit's mailed in, though. It's mailed in.
Right. So
but you have from your office to their office.
Right.
It's official business. They're not like they're looking at. It's a jurisdiction. See, the people not realizing it's a territorial jurisdictional game. That's how they got us in this whole bullshit, and it starts with the address.
Right. We get that.
Okay. I hope y'all do.
Well, but that's what I'm saying. Like you keep saying you people don't
No, I said y'all. Listen, I said officer person 20, 30 times. It's a 12-page document. People just want to go and zoom right through it and not really comprehend it. So yeah, because how do I know? Because 3 days after this is the most incredible read. They spewing war power. Matter of fact, they're spewing dead man statutes. So those are offered.
If you're going to use you all or y'all, that's including everybody, and everybody's not doing it wrong.
Listen, if you're operating as the office of person, you're doing it wrong, okay?
Thank you for your opinion.
No, that's a fact.
Okay. Anyway, Miss Panda, please go on.
I'm actually here. Hey, how are you doing?
Good.
Cool. So the bit that we were talking about beforehand is the fact that we're actually showing the hierarchical of the Mason State. It's different. I'm sorry, could you mute up a second?
Yeah, I'm doing it right now.
Thank you so much. All right. Thank you. So, fundamentally, what it is that's actually happening is because the nation state is an info system. That's the thing a lot of people have not ever been told. The nation state is an info system. So what you've got is a situation where a lot of people are thinking, hey, I got this, I got that, what can we actually do? So my response to this is what I said beforehand, where I said, there are certain things that you can do. There's not an issue. But the issue is the fact that if you were taught things incorrectly, and this is the issue because a lot of the time there were things in the public, and I say again, there are things in the public where they were used to ensnare you. That's essentially what this business is. And the way that they ensnare is because sometimes it's not just duality, but multiplicity. That's the essential, because when they're making it, because what they didn't say is there's a difference between being, and even though UNPO says there's no such thing, it's either just secured party or or a creditor. There is no, what he means is from a particular standpoint, because I'll tell you else, because in the system, there's also something else. In the Republic of California, where Christopher Fleming was actually tried, this is the situation where he's in the same journey as we all have been. He utilized his particular exemption, so he had actually corrected it. So he was ready to just subordinately to it being accepted. He actually then went to conduct a purchase. He purchased property according to Uniform Commercial Code Section 3. Highlight the emphasis within the Republic as regards to property purchase. So the realtor actually acquiesced, said they actually knew the law, most certainly acquiesced, and actually gave him his property. That wasn't the issue. The issue was when the paperwork was complete, so he thought, because he actually checked his side of using the treasurydirect.com and whatnot, there's a little bit of an issue, because I use treasurydirect.com. That's the public side of the treasury. You want to stay in the private side of the treasury. He didn't know that. So what happened is, whilst he was in the public side of the treasury, treasurydirect.com, he used that account transfer funds from there into an escrow account. So when he's thinking certain things should be 100%, oh no. So then the judge actually explained, she says, okay. So she lets him tell her, she lets him tell her exactly as to what went on. She says, I could tell you. She says, okay, well, that's your problem, right? She said, did you sign a secure party creditor without prejudice? He says, yes, I did, ma'am. She said, and was the other thing? Yes, that she asked for. And he says, yes. He says, but I could tell you what your problem is there. She says, escrow didn't close. So because that person failed and actually held the funds there and they didn't actually close, then obviously the realtor would think that somebody has been, that the person has actually been in dishonor. That's why we say when you conduct an absolute citation only use the gold, because the gold you can't use idiots like escrow. I'm sorry, I have to use that because they should have known better with that. When you're talking about the treasury, you received that instruction, you said it straight through. He didn't actually, the entities at escrow didn't do their job. So the thing about it was, she tried to lie and say that Mr. Fleming didn't most certainly do his particular job in purchasing the house. Everyone's just scared. And she was just trying to basically paint something very negative. She called the cops on him. He got manhandled out of his house. Gross attacks against this person. He literally said he was doing his best not to be shaken up about it, but he just said, no, he's had enough. Then next thing is that he said, that he was able to mount a defense, clear type written, clearly organized citation. So she frog marched him into court, saying, we're going to sue you because you're going to take your house. Because he said exactly as to what it is that happened with him. She said the problem is that the escrow didn't close as regards that, but everything else you most certainly are winning, because you decided that you used the correct administrative remedy. The state of California absorbed all of the canon of Uniform Commercial Code. You most certainly demonstrated that you were aware of the particular process. The technicality was the escrow. The state will take care of that. But generally, when you're conducting things to do with the Treasury, don't use treasury.com. Do not use treasury.com, and you don't use escrow. What you do is you just purely use the Treasury, because then if they jettison straight from the Treasury, they go straight to the realtor's depository account. They know where it is, they can jettison it from there. With escrow, because it was cash, there wasn't importance. If it's actually the thing to do with gold, they send that straight away, because there's a different type of urgency. They have to send it straight away quick as soon as they receive the instruction. Whereas it's cash, like, it's an indemnification. There's a certain way they do that, and you don't want to actually be caught with any of that. So this is what he should have done, but he didn't use escrow. So that's what got him in a little hot water. Even though he completed the process, they just didn't close it. So then excuse me. So where he was manhandled and then actually frog marched into the court, he actually says in what his particular case is, the judge says you are winning, not an issue. Then you have the realtor to actually cite what her particular stance is. She didn't have much to say, and her particular records were not exactly clear, clean, and researched and on bond paper. So she said, I'm going to tell you what it is. Because you have won, first of all, there has to be a stay on that house for 30 days. You cannot enter that house for 30 days. There's a stay. No one can enter. Not you, not the realtor, nothing, nobody. You cannot enter that house. And I must remind you, Mr. Fleming, if you at all enter that house, and she's telling you, it will undo everything. He will be in the worst trouble whatsoever. Then she said to him two things. He says, well, I'm Christopher of the Fleming family. She says, yes, but I have to call you Mr. Fleming. And he says, okay. And she says, and so she says, I don't care what you call yourself. I just want to know I've got the right body. And then she says to him, the trouble is, she says, I've been on the bench for over 10 years. I'm aware of your jurisdiction. She said, and then she continues to say, the trouble with your jurisdiction is that you're unaware of your rules and responsibilities. She says, I can only use the laws I have here. Unless you change the laws there, I can't help. So then most certainly she reminded him, he's got to keep quiet, stop being emotional in the court. You just don't do it. So then he's like, okay, but so this is why I said to people, the issue was he was given a lot of misinformation. He used escrow. Had he not used escrow and just only used the treasury straight away, that situation in terms of how it manifests would not have happened, because the fact when they know the treasury comes direct to crack their neck as opposed to escrow, it changes a lot of things. So the situation was, the judge put the stay on the house, so he must now be able to re-enter it after 30 days. But the second part, which is the fraudulent statement that the realtor made, had to be tried in another court. Excuse me. So what happened is the fact that he attends a second court. There wasn't much to actually say, because literally the judge was so disgusted with what he was actually reading. He says, yes, I'm aware of what happened in the first court. And so he says, I also am to triangulate what is to happen with the second. He says, well, you've actually attended to the particulars. Yes, as regards being manhandled, says the house is actually being returned to you, Mr. Fleming. But you are to follow the advice you were given with the first. Do not enter the house for 30 days. You need the stay. Thereafter, you can enter it as you so will. And then when it came to the realtor deciding their side, says, ma'am, whatever it is you got to say, save it. Because he realized essentially with those fraudulent citations, you are paying attention to. And I say again, when you're dealing with those type of people making belligerent statements, you have to make sure that you're in the absolute. So for him, he's like, you see, that heifer was trying to take my money. See, the judge actually voted on my side. But he had to remember, when it comes to truly utilizing, when you say using your treasury account, it's not a trust. The people were told or incorrectly say, oh, well, it was a trust set up for you. That's when a treasury account is indemnified by the public. That's what they call it, a trust. But originally, it's a gold account, because when they say cash is never exempt from levy, when they say, oh, you get a cash for something, no, you got to have something in the private to nullify when that thing gets issued. There's no way you can have cash that's a that you have cash that is a tax-free sum like that. It doesn't happen. You have to have something in the private to nullify its issue in the public. So because they tried to break that connection, that's where the encumbrance came. So that's why I was saying to you guys, if you want to do it, because there's a lot that you guys have actually applied correctly, and but also there's things that people had told you where it's a bit incorrect, or maybe, and sometimes it's not just what they have told you. Sometimes it's just what the consciousness is in terms of what is out there, because there was a lot of it. And so I got, I can see what you mean. So that's why I said, you went, no. That's why I said, if you want to, it's just fine tuning. Okay. But what the emphasis of the stress is, just that fine line of somebody not closing was enough to get Mr. Fleming in the Republic of California banged up the way that he was with all of those particular wounds. That took him a while to recover. Yeah, he got his house back, but then because of what it is that he actually needed to do afterwards, like how is he going to support himself? Because he wasn't taught to create an economic strategy. So the economic strategy means you made certain purchases with those particular assets. Just like he purchased his house, he should have purchased, say, a business, certain aspects of transportation. And then after all of that has actually been complete, if he had a situation where, let's say, he did not want to actually persist in being in the public, he then could have pulled out, because then he would know how to exempt all of his assets and then taken them out the system with him, but make sure he continues to exempt at all times the exemption brackets, to manifest, the exemption brackets. That would showcase case correct of him perfecting his political status declaration, which restores the original virtue that he had by correcting the incorrect assumptions and judgments levied against him. Then in that same system, he's then saying he's now needing to maintain himself during the time of war. He purchases certain things to ensure that he's self-sufficient. He reclassifies them so that the debt signature is not placed against asset, because if it's done in the positive, you are literally classified as actually being exempt. You're classically in another nation, basically. Whereas if you're in the nation of the nation state, everything's got a debt signature. So when they're telling you, when you want to actually use this particular account, basically you got to go to the high street. You're not supposed to do that. You're supposed to draft the document. Sorry, I had a bit of a dry throat. Okay, so excuse me. So the thing is that you're supposed to do that from the comfort of your own home. Draft your document. Generally, when you're used to of that particular classification, between 5 to 10 days. Once you've actually got that, there isn't anything to talk about. You have drafted it correctly with the way that I mentioned about it having 7 parts, how exactly it is within that. The next thing that you actually do, you jettison it. You keep it all in the private, because what it is, then you're not having people that are in the chain that actually try to upset it, because that's what Christopher Fleming had. The thing that put him in the situations because escrow didn't close. Yes, he used treasurydirect.com, but most people say if you want to truly be in the private, don't use any public citation, because you're interrupting, as I use the term, you're interrupting the line. That's the thing that causes problems. So what you do is, if you want to say, right, I want to attend to all of these things, attend to your political status declaration, get everything virtuous, okay? So you do that. If you've got any outstanding things that need to be discharged, meaning that you actually get that you reduce to 0, put that in, and you conduct those, you apply them to the instrument after, and you keep the original, obviously, but you provide the Xerox, Then most certainly put that in a plastic sheet, put that in the jacket. Then most certainly the only thing you say afterwards is that most certainly you're sending that off. That's covered with a UCC3. That's just, well, most certainly you're indemnified. But if you say, you know what, after I've done that, I really want to come off, don't do that just yet, because you still got to purchase your property. Now, what you do is you just perfect this technique. You go to that's why I say when people say, oh, well, if you want to purchase property, technically you're supposed to only go to the realtor, and under the particular classification of Section 3 under the Uniform Commercial Code, to only describe mano a mano, to have a private conversation, not negotiation, a private conversation with the realtor, citing on account of that particular canon. And because you have this, and you can prove that political status because it's in your ID, you can then most certainly you want to purchase certain things, whether it's a house, whether it's a myriad of houses, cars, etc. Cars in a business. Those are the 3 things you basically need, because you need transportation, because the United States of America is a large country. Transportation is quite difficult when most certainly you're not utilizing certain routes. So that's one thing. Two, you need a business because essentially you want to, it's not just about keeping yourself busy, but just supposing you have certain things in the country which most certainly are not innate to that particular system of making distant arrangements, because there are a lot of things now where, where essentially because of what it is that actually manifest, that they are not akin to doing what they most certainly should. They're not akin to doing exactly to what they should. So then you've got a situation where once again, it's the all caps name is the private. The all caps name is the public. It never is private. She's giving you guys a lot of good information. Thank you. So what happened is the fact where I said, because you've got a situation now where subordinate entities are then saying, oh, well, I want to mess around. You don't give them a chance to mess around. If you keep it in the private, most of those belligerent entities can't enter. This is why I say to people, it's not that you couldn't purchase what you wanted, but they told you to go about it that would actually give permiss or give rise to certain people allowing themselves to contract with you. But if you say, I need to speak to the finance officer of the realty firm, finance officer of the car dealership, finance officer of the realtor that deals with executive or corporate property or corporate realty, then most certainly the citation is. You then say, thank you, the people. It's just a fact that it just ended up having atmospheric things. There have been a lot of chemtrails about. Thank you. So then when you have done it in that particular way, you can say it. I did, thank you. But just for you, I'll just drink a little more.
Listening. How does everybody feel about gold and silver coin in bill of sale? Original Chris Hauser like statements. And how powerful are they? Is this all just made up silliness, or can we transfer property just by witnesses and private individuals in gold and silver coin, 21 silver dollars, etc.? Has anybody done that or practiced that here?
Spencer, I was on a live the other day that he was on. I was in the comments. He was on in the box, and he actually said that the UCC one, it now is monetized. So I'm diving into that too, because I have put several bonds in my UCC one, but he's done it.
What he's actually done. If it's monetized, how did he classify it? That's the thing. I'm not insulting him. I'm saying when one uses a UCC one, does one actually know what that form is for? Because a lot of people say, oh, just use a 1-3 is to amend. Correct. The point is you don't want to create anything new. So if he's causing a significant amount of ones, the first thing is that, because that's why I gave the example of my aunt, but I'll explain because Miss Lee, at the time I don't think that you were present. So I'll just explain. My aunt had all of those particular successes that I mentioned in terms of all of the citation that were being done in her favor. She continued to use a UCC3 after the 1099 and then 1040 because each one has distinct functions. So it's multifaceted. Fine. So then I said, fine. Now it's the thing where she's now feeling the weight of all that she's had to do. And she's like, I just want the peace, blah, blah, blah. Because now she's getting a bit emotional. And I said, it's a bit of an emotional ride. Expect that. So essentially what ends up happening is the fact that she said that she undoes her work while she completes a UCC1. Technically speaking, people think, oh, well, it wasn't done. It wasn't, they just said, it was done. That's it. Well, what happened to her after she filed that document, she really wished she hadn't done it, because everything that was forgiven when she used the UCC3 to set her absolute status, she went back on it. Everything that she had discharged, they held it against her, her house, her mortgage, everything was removed.
All right, so this is a pretty...
Say that again, please. Sorry.
And was discussing, I believe Chris Hauser was in a live the other day before you addressed the UCC ones. And I was specifically only considering before everybody corrects their statuses, can we as, say, beneficiaries or living men and women, if we autograph appropriately, is there a way for us to transfer property via bills of sale with gold and silver coin because our U.S. code reads that way? Can we still do that? Is there any validity to transferring property before we get...
There is validity to actually... Okay, there is validity for transferring property no matter what you do. It's just the reason why it's preferred that you do that after political status declaration, because there are two ways to do it. One, where most certainly you have not handed back the Social Security card, so you're not going to lose anything. So that basically means you're just making sure that everything's nice, clean, and tidy. That's essentially how I have to put that. So that's what we did for my aunt, and so when she had it the correct way, then most certainly what you've got, you say, I want to transfer my property now. There's no objection for you doing so. So if you want to transfer and you go, okay, how do you do that? It's basically like a living will. You just said that the title has been transferred, but via a private sale. So because of that, there's no encumbrance. The only time when you have encumbrances is if you trade on the public. If you trade in the market on the high seas, they don't know where that came from. So that's where stamp duty and all the other encumbrances that come with the purchase of the house besets. Does that make sense?
It does. But again, I'm just trying to figure out if there's a way to quickly and efficiently utilize gold and silver coin for bills of exchange for,
okay.
sale.
Okay, so
why
it still is possible.
All a big talk before, and now all of a sudden, gold and silver coin and bills of sale are not valuable. I'm trying to figure out if there's anybody that's ever benefited from having a private bill of sale between two people on the land using a beneficiary autograph. I don't know if that makes sense.
It makes sense, but I have to tell you what it is. The transmission is a little wrong, and I'll tell you what I mean. If you're going to conduct a contract between two people, that's called a private contract. That's mano a mano. The public's not in it, so there won't be any finance. There won't be any encumbrance set. If you choose to, so whatever you use to settle it will be literally will most certainly be sufficient. If you want to use gold and silver coin to do it, they are valuable because of fundamentally.
So you're saying you could use coffee beans and it doesn't matter because it's that private?
It is that private because you have to understand. One second. Do you know of the law of contract? Yes.
Yes.
And you know that there are two types. There could be a multilateral contract, or there could be a private contract. Private contract is most certainly when you have between two people. Basically, that's in the private because it's not quoted on the stock exchange. It means there's a private arrangement. Basically, what you decide to trade with someone, that's your business. If it's done between the two of you, then there's no financial encumbrance because it's not done on the high seas. You're doing that in the private sector. Private sector is the spiritual world. There's no encumbrance there, so you don't have to say that you're a beneficiary. You just actually transfer. This is what I'm saying. If you want to transfer, if you are saying you want to purchase property or you want to transfer property. The thing is, if you're purchasing property and you want to use gold and silver, you could do that right away because you have political status declaration. But if it's the case you want to transfer something, you can still also do that with gold and silver because gold and silver is valuable under two things: the ancient celestial laws because of their spiritual purposes, and it's also reflected within the coinage acts because if something is gold or silver, that, as you know, as per the scientific endurance, it's actually highly valuable because of what it can do. That's where the intrinsic wealth is, as opposed to brass, nickel, copper. Those things are not very high in value because that's classified as decimal coinage. So this is why I say, if a person says, "Hey, I want to actually get myself a nice house," fine, get yourself a nice house. If it's two people, this is why I said to you, when you conduct the purchase, they kept on saying you do it by the bills of exchange. You don't need to use the bills of exchange because it's a private contract. You're not trading with the enemy. A bill of exchange is a way to trap you into trading with the enemy because it's interrupting with the line. The way technically somebody should have said to them, said, "Hey, you said you want to go to have a private contract? Okay, go to the realtor." Not just go to present your document the way that you would saying exactly as to what you should have in the jacket and say, "Excuse me, I need to speak to the finance officer." Fine, about a private matter. Nothing else, not allowing anybody to come into it. "Excuse me, yeah, fine, we can do that. Only the matter of your expertise." Fine, not a problem. In the office, say, "Okay, excuse me, I'd like to conduct an absolute and unfettered purchase." Okay, absolute and unfettered purchase. Sorry?
I was repeating that, absolute and unfettered.
Yes, it is. Sorry, it's just when you were speaking, the signal actually went out a bit. That's why I had to ask again.
Okay.
So what happened is that they said, right, yes, you desire to do that. Okay, well, and you said this is, and he says, okay, what did the realtor actually says, okay, what exactly is it? So you're saying, as you know, that the United States is under Uniform Commercial Code. You said, yes, it is, but you are an entity that's in the private, so you have private means, and it is these private, and it is these private means that you desire to utilize to settle upon a house. So therefore, you're purchasing the mortgage out. Right, thereby making it an absolute and unfettered purchase. They should know what that means. They said, yes, that's not a problem. So you should not have anybody dipping into what you're doing and trying to go by credit checks because you don't need that. You've already got the means. You've already got the things perfected. So in the account, if you're doing it correctly, that's what we said. Do the political status declaration first, then you want to go and purchase the house. Because then once all the objections have been removed, they check it, they go, yep, fine, you want to do it because then you've activated your gold account. You've reclaimed your gold account. So you've got everything to work with. I know because I use my gold account to purchase my houses. So this is why I said it. That is why I said this. I'm saying I've done it. So this thing is, and also if you're in the places where I actually purchased, you're not allowed to use anything else but gold. So you won't be allowed to use cash because of what it is that you're doing. So this is the thing. So what happens with it is the fact that you say, this is my jacket, and you draw their attention to the second part, which is the letter of intent. Letter of intent is addressed to the particular entity of the store, highlighting what exactly your intention is to do, to conduct a private sale by way of an absolute and unfettered purchase with your private means, and you do this. And you say exactly what you want to do so, and you say that you are aware that you know that you use this particular recourse instead of utilizing cash on account of the fact that the United States, most certainly as a corporation, there isn't anything of. So you want to make sure that you're operating correctly in your private jurisdiction. That's why you have to use gold. So the things what they try to do is try to get you to use cash for something, even though you're in the private, and continue to actually straddle the two. You can't do that because that's interrupting the line. That's what they kept on getting people and kept on trapping them with. So this is why we actually said no. If you do it if you say to them straight, it's just with the gold account, do that first. And if they say, yes, we can certainly do, they go and conduct the necessary checks to see that you are who you say you are. So they go into the second room because you're in the first room, which is their office, but they have one at the back beyond it. If you work in the bank, you know how they're actually addressed. So they need to communicate with their upline, the treasury, to get the loan request form, to actually request the sanction. They do. The funds are already entered. They say, yep, they've been able to liquidate a certain amount of that gold. But what it is that they move a certain portion of gold into another strong room, or from the treasury source account into a strong room. That particular note that you have, or it is what they call it, but it's not a note. You've got an absolute instrument there. So therefore, it's not of exchange because you're using gold. Therefore, they put that against that gold in the strong room. So you said exactly what you want. You're saying literally the account certainly can handle all the aspects pursuant to that transaction. And so because of that, that is the reason as to why when you conduct that transaction, say, yep, it's not a problem now. What house do you want to see? This is it. So this is fine, right? We're going to complete the paperwork now. But no, the fees already actually been received because they get a particular jettison from the treasury with a special communication. Smack after this, they'll actually tell you. They say, right, now everything is complete. I need you to basically sign these documents where you're citing that title has actually been transferred to you. And then most certainly when they do that, they give you the title deeds of the property. They also give you the keys. It's happy days. You walk out of that store, you actually make sure you keep their business card for future reference. That's exactly how it's supposed to happen if it's purely done in the private. You will not have to pay taxes. You will not have to pay anything. But if you go and use cash, they have to do it because cash has no intrinsic value. Then it sets off stamp duty, sets off value-added tax, sets off a lot of other things. By the time that you're actually thinking, I can't even purchase, I can't even think about that because essentially it's designed to eat away at what you have. So gold and silver will always be valuable because the spiritual aspect, if you're working as a sovereign in the spirit, you can only use gold and silver, things of intrinsic value. So when they say it's not a value in the public, because the public, they're trying to tell people, give up your gold and silver again. It's still the Golden Seizure Act again. So if you got gold, don't give it up to anybody. So therefore, speaking to someone who does use her private means, and I did use the system, and I mentioned not only what my name is, but also what my house is. So if you look at Kanaka Palace, you notice in certain public records that where a corporation highlights that's my house. I purchased it 2017. I highlighted it in the letter of intent. That's exactly what I'm going to do. So it will serve as two things: my public public facing office. So it would be the palace for it would be the palace for my family and my public facing office. So still saying it's private, but I have public facing. That means it deals with anything in the public with regards to certain elements of state business. And it's also used by the Kerala government for cultural fests. So this is basically what it is that I did. I purchased it 2017. It took no less than 10 days completing the process. Didn't have to come out with no cash. Didn't have to come with nothing. And I said and I stipulated all that I'm actually purchasing shall be from the point of inception, conclusion, inception, maintenance, and conclusion. Should only be handled by the demise of my treasury resource account. I say exactly where the account is actually located, and they actually levied it, and then most certainly title was transferred. That's what you can see in the public. So yes, it says it's actually possessed by a particular trust. That's public language, but the word trust is two things. If it's indemnified, there's a certain way it looks, but if it's actually been repealed, this is the thing. You can't say what corporate face does that house have, because you can't say it's a house that actually someone who's unincorporated is still going to actually use a corporate face, just the point of view of protecting who you are, because you can't say on the high seas, hey man, you got a whole heap of cash, because basically you know what's going to happen, they're going to come and rob you. So that's basically what it is. So the thing is, but when you check it and you look at it and you conduct an integrity check, it shows you who the actual possessor is. It's myself. So whenever they ask, oh, what's your particular address, I've actually put it in. I've actually put it in, and I've actually said, right, this is my address. Shri Beshi Brahman, and then I actually had like Kanakakun, Shri Kanti Road, Kanakanagar, Nachankaju, and then we're saying certainly Trishur, Tirupananthapuram, Kerala, Kerala and Malabar in Hindustan. So that's basically how I put the whole thing. Then I put the exemption brackets around the zip code. That's it. That's exactly what I actually did. Purchased it in 2017. Have this property still to date, 125 acres. And that's all by private sale.
And so, this is insane. Now, have you ever heard about the agricultural lien that's on all men and women with like arms and legs?
Yep. That's the DEFRA department.
And so what happens with that agricultural lien when someone corrects their status? What happens with these liens? Are they paid off via? Are they cleared?
The agricultural lien is corrected because you have how can I put it this way? In places where you have an agricultural lien, as you say, upon the complete body of the person, basically that's to do with suckage, okay, and then it leads to indentured servitude, because we were talking about that word beforehand. Sorry, tulips, multilinguistic. Thank you. So what happens is the fact that with when you actually correct it. It's this. People say, but there's a lien on this particular citation. There's a this, there's a that. So hold on, you need to correct it, because at the present, when you haven't completed your political status declaration, that's in the negative. You can't claim anything on the land yet.
Right.
So, but then when you've perfected it, then most certainly what the agricultural lien is, it's actually adjusted, so you're classified as a free man on the land. So the agricultural lien is one for you, and you just claim your portion. That's why you can actually use the exemption brackets, because you're saying, because the service, they have to give you the land, because that's the law in payment for your service.
Okay, that makes sense. Wow. That's awesome. Thank you.
You're welcome. One second, is it twice to utilize the security certificate power bond for accord and satisfaction of the account? For accord and certificate, hold on a second. Is it wise to utilize the security certificate power bond for accord and satisfaction? The whole point is that's why you correct your political status declaration, because you're saying originally when they issued you a bond, you have to utilize that on the high seas to tend to all of your transactions. You're not supposed to have cash. So what you do is you do it privately, and you say, because of this particular code, they see that on the database. That's what that is. So that's why they go, because when you're in the negative, they're saying, no, you're not supposed to use that. You're supposed to use cash. You can't do that if you're going to exact your rights in the private. In the private, you don't got no cash. Because true private is a spiritual realm. There ain't no cash there. Because this is what I was saying to peeps. So what you do is, because you've corrected your political status declaration, you highlight what your certificate of lading is, you own all the other particulars, and that's what it is that you do. You get up and you make sure that you can actually do what you're supposed to. Because the issue is, people say, is it right to use it for a court? You can use it for a court. That's what it was intended for, because you're an entity in the private providing funding for the nation state, but they try to run away with you and classify you as something else. So the thing about it is, if it's for a court, you're making a virtuous accord because you need to find somewhere to live. That's the long and the short of it. You need to find someone to live. So if you've done it correctly and you said private, just the model that I gave you, that's how it is when you conduct all aspects of private transaction. If it's done by a post because you're not in the same location, you just send the document to them. If there's anything in that that's incorrect, then most certainly you'll notice, because they'll return the document into. I always put that codicil in there, so just in case, they send the document back. Every single time I have sent my documents, they were not sent back to me. And as you can see, if you check my name, you do a background check, you actually find the place that I mentioned is actually my house. And I purchased that after I actually completed my political status declaration, July 30th, 2013. So no Social Security, no public indemnification, no taxation, no citizen indemnification. So literally, I'm a private individual, and I have the use of all of my innate jurisdictions classification, and utilize that to do exactly as I might. And that's basically what it is. Spencer dropped off.
What's up, you guys?
Hey. Everything's good. We're just talking about how to correctly conduct a purchase in the private, because there was a lot of misinformation, because there was a lot of information. I saw that myself, because somebody said something to me, you don't do that. But that, you see, this is where I went, hold on, let me just hear what you're saying, because I'm not jumping to a conclusion. I'm saying, hey, you could have done it completely right, and it could have been somebody else that was a screw up. You know what I mean? It's been known to happen. So the thing about it is, I said, just let me hear it for a second. I went, no, you've done most of that right. I see what it is. That person tried to get you at the junction. So that's what it was. Other than that, you're fine. So if you do it the way I mentioned,
the jacket is. You're talking about the jacket the way that way is what you're talking about. Is what you're mentioning?
Yeah, the jacket.
Yeah, that's the whole the process I don't understand 100% yet still, which I'm trying. I'm listening, so I'm gonna sit back and listen.
Hey, so that's what it is. The reason why they call it. Hold on a second. Hey, so this is the thing. So the reason why I actually said it, if you're talking about a jacket, it's just basically a treasury term, a central banking term also, basically for something that you actually have utilized as a shield to encompass certain documents which cannot be sent on the high seas. That's why you have to use the postal, that allows you to cite and implement what you should without having the encumbrance of spies and a lot of other things. So that's why it's protected. That's why there's a certain way that you do, and you actually send it. Once you do, you remember I mentioned the 7 areas, sections 1 to 7, which also include a table of contents, exactly as to what the document should have. Once it's actually done, hey TT, how are you? And so what it is that we're saying that with this particular element, you use that. So because you've got that particular, once you've actually corrected everything, that most certainly you should, as per the preparation of the jacket, the only thing you need to do is to most certainly to send it if it's something where proximity is an issue. Otherwise, you can take that document with you. And most certainly you actually negotiate. And you say, I need to go to the realtor because they're located at a certain amount of distance. Then you say, right, this is what I have. This is exactly what I need to do in the way that I specified it. So you don't end up in the situation where they get most people to conduct a conjunctional transaction, because we've all been there, because they try to say, no, that's the standard. And you're like, no, it isn't. So you quickly, you alacritize, you manifest it quickly. You're like, no, that isn't the way that it's done. Thank you. So you realize that you don't interrupt the line. Keep yourself completely in the private. Because sometimes when it's not, and then they go, but the transaction was perfect, but it's this word here. They said you're supposed to classify it with that word. That changed the whole transaction. So the reason why I say do it that way and you may keep it in the private is then you stop taxes. Because you use gold to purchase the house, there's no encumbrance of value added tax, stamp duty, HOA, nothing. So this is where I say you can actually do it. I did it, and I've got the document, and I can actually show you Saturday.
Hey there.
I had a thought.
Hey, Spencer.
So this whole time I've been kind of trying to relate everything consistently that you're teaching to energy transfer, just because that's how you got me a long time ago with transmitting utility. And as you say, interrupting the line. You know, we the people, we've had a circuit board master on here. Can you repeat to me and explain to me, because you asked if everybody knew what interrupting the line was earlier, and I didn't know. That's new for me. That tells me, I always said that I didn't want to interrupt their circuit. So I used to tell people, I'm trying to get in the private, I'm trying to be in the private, I just want to live in the private. And I don't want to interrupt their circuit.
Thank you very much. Okay, no, I understand. Yes, I can repeat it.
Always say I don't want to interrupt their circuit. So I found that very strange when you said that. And could you explain what it means again? So
is it like an assembly line? Like it kind of.
It's similar. It's similar to that, because what it is called. They say don't interrupt the line because it's a transmission line. When you conduct a financial transaction, the line when you jettison it must be in a correct directive line. So what you do is you get up and you most certainly cite what the base is. So let's say you have the Treasury and they need to see exactly what the destination is. So if you drafted your document correctly, that's why you say political status declarations. That says you're only in one jurisdiction. You're in the private. You send it to the Treasury, to the Treasury, or you, in this case, you send it to the Federal Reserve or the central bank. You send it to them. Then they go, okay, fine, not a problem. Yep, received the particulars. Okay, right, now what is it we actually need to do here? Now, if it's purchasing a house, you cannot do that through the central bank directly like that. You have to go by way of the realtor, because there's certain documents they need to put with it. Otherwise, as per the way things are done now, it's unenforceable. And so that's where you go to them first, get that document, and have the bits at the bottom void if altered, so they can't deface the document, because then they could go to jail for that. They take that, and so this is why I said when you get the line, it's to do with the inceptor, the one who is the source of funds. Second, the one with whom you contract. So that's literally one short line. The other half is most certainly the Treasury or the central bank, the one who will receive that document, so as to most certainly put it into a vault. That's what the line is, because then you say clearly who the inceptor is, who the recipient of the funds are, and who the adjudicating body is that most certainly finalizes the public and private records as regards to, change of title. Because in the private, you don't have title deeds issued. They put the particulars in your identity documents. So what it is, the records will still show that you have the entry. It's just you don't get that nasty piece of paper that most certainly highlights that you got to get encumbrances. That's the difference. So when people say don't interrupt the line, they're just they're saying don't confuse jurisdictions. One second.
Right. It also seems very quick, like a direct line. Like there's no questions, there's no interruptions, there's no resistance. There's no resistance there. It's just clean and crisp. I appreciate that. Thank you.
For cash, hence taxes. If you're okay. The reason why tax the reason why the tax encumbrance is activated is if a person goes to the high seas. Anything persons purchased on the high seas is classified as being of derived value. Therefore, subject to customs and excise. That's essentially what it is. That's why the tax thing happens. But if you're purely into private and you have a high classification of value and you've got your gold account, you don't need to go anywhere near that high street. You just go straight to the realtor. Because you said that you wanted to conduct an absolute and unfettered purchase, that's no longer a ship on the high seas. That's a ship in dry dock. So that's private. That's such a private citation. Nobody on the high seas is actually going to interfere with that. So then when you've negotiated like the way I mentioned, that essentially what you end up having. One second. The question actually came out. Hold on, I'll answer your question just momentarily. If it is most certainly that you are actually that you can crucify the sale, you have to make sure you stay completely in the private. Make sure that when you approach it, you have political status declaration in the affirmative, meaning whatever thing they did in the past, you make sure you correct it. Then if you want to pursue, right, I'm going to that particular store. It's private, you're in dry dock. So in this case, even though technically it's admiralty, because you said private, that means you're not actually trading on the high seas. You're trading in dry dock, because dry dock is where private negotiations can happen. On the high seas, it's called not trade, but it's called exchange. So the thing about that is that when you've done that and you go, hold on a second, okay, I want to do this, I want to do that. Because the language that you said categorical, you don't have derived value. You have something that is of absolute value. So because the way that you monetize the transaction with absolute nullification, because you use gold, there's no tax. You can't tax gold. Gold is what? Exempt from levy.
Right.
Okay? So this is the thing. Whereas cash is not exempt from levy. You start using the cash, the first thing on the high seas, that's what they do. They go, oh, okay, because you actually got this. Oh, yes, this thing has what? But it's my own cash. Yeah, but it's decimal cash. According to the Gold Standards Act, that the cash has no value. It's decimal. So if you utilize it, you're going to be exempt to tax because it's a fin. It's something that's worthless on the high sea. Whenever you move it, it doubles in value. So this is why you've got to conduct the discharge to move those traces, because the thing is, they'll say, hey, you actually owe money, because they know spiritually you're supposed to have a clean line, a clean set of lines for a transaction. Sorry,
okay, so my question was earlier, I don't know if you excuse me, I don't think you saw it, but what I was referring to was when they were doing a financial installment agreement, basically how they kind of slithered their way, into what they've done to all of us. So, or what we allowed, because we didn't know, I should say. Did they take our application to the Federal Reserve window to get cash, and then they never gave it to us?
No, it's not to get cash. They didn't take it to the Federal Reserve window. What they did is they waited for a redemption period, because they can't go up and go straight away too. Because when I read it, I did see the comment, but what it was, it's just because how I comprehended it at the time. Excuse me. Thank you. So, the thing about the what's actually going on is when you have had people that are interrupted with your transaction, essentially they've got to wait for a redemption period, because they can't just pick it up right then. They go to jail. That's the long and the short of it. They go to jail. They gotta wait between 3 to 5 years, because 3 to 5 years is the particular tax office or the IRS reclamation. And I do say again, reclamation patterns. Certain acts that I can't mention just now, but and it's just because it's the fact it's a certain location. But I will mention that closer to the time.
That's okay.
But certain tax reclamation citation between 3 to 5 years highlights that you cannot actually touch an asset that most certainly you may possibly have entitlement to. That's what I try to make sure, that if you're going to have a transaction, they could get this person to use cash, because then if they do that, we can claim it within 30 days. Oh, yes, we have this, but hold on to it for 3 years. The 3 years, pull it out. That's why they're trying to say to people, pay your mortgage or pay the transaction before they actually walk away with it. So they don't go to the window to get cash. They know at 3 to 5 years that particular note is still in existence. All they do is just put it to the side and wait until it happens. And then they send the command from the Treasury to the central bank in order to liquidate those bonds.
Wait, so what about the financial institution that's involved?
As I said, they're citing it under les droits d'admiralté. That's why I said everything is in time. If you can't purchase things ab initio, in the way that I said, what it is the fact from 3 to 5 years, it's all classified as a wreck of admiralty. They're gonna claim it 3 to 5 years, and they're gonna walk off with it. And the fact that the one of the accounting department are also gonna sit in, because that's the one that deals with probate. So because you got that 5 years classified as being dispossessed, if they wait another 5 years after that, it's classified as clinically the person. If they're trying to get this reclassified, they can actually take that stuff and not actually get it back.
That is where because I remember I brought up the 5 year thing about liquidating. This is what you were talking about, the 5 year thing. Okay, wow. So we're paying the bank. They gave us nothing, and the deal. Is the dealership getting paid? Like, how are they splitting the proceeds?
What it is essentially, once they've got that document, they have to send it to the Treasury, because they're not allowed to keep that on the premises. But what the Treasury does, they give specific instructions as regards to where it's supposed to be located, because essentially if they're purchasing it outright, then basically that's what it is. That's it. The matter is completely settled. But if they've gone and they've had a situation where someone has told them to make a fettered purchase, that's where the dealership basically gets their cut, because they just have to wait for a certain amount of time. And also there are other things that they can do that within the span of a year if they want to. Let's say if they try to see if they can give them misinformation, get them to miss out on a payment or something like that, then they can actually use that reclamation of a breach of a court or a breach of an international convention, take the asset that way.
Oh my God. Well, we've been taught wrong about that too, guys. Oh, thank you for answering that. That was because the reason I ask is because I want us to know what was happening, behind the scenes. So we'll have a better comprehension and understanding of the right way. So we'll be able to pivot and catch on to what they're doing. It kind of bridges it. So thank you.
No worries.
I hope that helped somebody else too. That helped me.
Excellent. Sure, B. Yes, that's it. It answers to your questions.
Yeah, and then they claimed abandoned funds, right? What a perfect little plot for them.
This is that. 1 second, Dina. Would it be ideal to get a postal order from the dealer, a medallion, stamp it, and have the transfer agent pay vehicle off it? The only problem with that is you're dispossessing it when you're actually implementing the line. So essentially, then it's subject to encumbrances. You change the jurisdiction. It's still going to be admiralty. You can't use a stamp because it's a stamp. This is the thing. You have to look at the law of checks, the law of accounts, and the law of stamps. The law of stamps, if anybody has paid attention to that, or the Stamps Act is another way of putting it. If you pay attention to that, you'll be surprised at what the stamp can be used for.
We have been intentionally uneducated and slammed. AJ, slammed.
That tells me there's non-full disclosure and a lot of coercion as well.
Yeah, that's an understatement.
Not just a lack of understanding. And so when I think of all this stuff that has been obviously intentionally kept from us, even on the record, when we're dealing with banking and they're literally keeping pertinent information away from us on the record, I always see some sort of standing just due to lack of full and honest disclosure, specific contract law. Because when I think about this stuff before you're free, before you finish a process, you guys were talking about blood earlier. I think about, all right, what if I just don't speak? I don't hand over DL. I don't give them my name. I don't speak. They can only hold me for 30 days, yada, yada. But then earlier, it's like as soon as you get there, they take your DNA. Did they just establish jurisdiction for forced, slow court case? You see what I'm saying? And so is that a lawful DNA test? If you don't speak, what happens? And there's no crime or injured party.
Again, it's because it's the law. It is a trick because it's martial law. Essentially, you're supposed to speak at all times because if you don't speak, it's classified as being dishonorable. So bearing in mind, if you're
dishonorable?
In admiralty, yes, it is.
Wow. Well, if I don't feel like speaking, I assure you I'm not going to.
But the way you do it is if you need to conduct medical, if you find that you need to conduct medical transaction, you do that in the private. So therefore, you have a private physician actually attend you. This is why we said certain entities. The issue is, 1 second, your delivery KAP to be. Sorry, once again, CKJK, new word I learned from KKS Panda, used to be a Halloween term all the time. So the thing about it is that what it is that when, as I say, you desire to have medical service, you have to have a private physician attend you. If you do not, the issue is that if it's in the private, say no, they have to be aware of the laws and the acts. Most doctors are, and that's the thing. But if it is the case that you say, okay, but what they try to do is to frog march you, and that's what you're talking about. You went to the hospital, you didn't speak, but they took blood from you. That's still frog marching you because they tried to extract something from you, so it's most certainly to entail you to something. That means frog march. That means that you've actually had little indemnité, where they've had corpus delicti in the very least. Basically, they've used literally a dispossessed asset or a wreck of admiralty manifest as per the fact they treated you as if most certainly you didn't have any jurisdiction, extracted it from you, tried to so literally unlawfully manifest an extraction from you, attempted to exhibit it against you by way of an entailment. That in itself, although you didn't speak, the thing about that is you step your 1 foot, even 1 toe on that hospital, on the hospital floor, on the hospital forecourt, not. But if you step 1 foot in the hospital, you just see the gate, step 1 toe in there, you've infused your energy. That's a naval base.
Yeah.
So this is why
foundling hospitals, yada yada. That's a specific jurisdiction, correct?
that is correct. So this is why we say a lot of people, when you want to do certain things, try to do as much as you can, as Ms. Lee and others that actually had it correctly, that they're holistically aware. So in that particular jurisdiction, the only thing they actually need to do is to continue to do most of it. If it comes to having children and whatnot, if they have a family friend who's most certainly expert in doing that, that's exactly what they continue to do, because that they actually have homes that have babies within the house.
You're talking to the midwife. You're talking to the midwife. We wrote it out for 48 hours and tried everything to not go to the hospital. And I threw in the towel at 48 hours at the first sign of complications. And we finished at 60 hours. We went all out. We tried our best. And then social services gave us a visit and everything. It was pretty wild. But, yeah, didn't turn out the way I wanted, but gave it my best shot.
I can see exactly as to what it is. It depends also upon the way that how should I put it? The way that the pregnancy is conducted. Because you see, the first thing back in the day when a woman knew that she was expecting, she would just allow the baby to gestate. She wouldn't go to the hospital to have the sonogram or anything like that. So she wouldn't be fed as they do now.
We did nothing. We did nothing. Not a single prenatal appointment. Nothing. We went as holistic and raw as humanly possible. And our last goal was to go to the hospital. And I promise you, we studied for 9 months straight. And I was the midwife. My wife didn't even want anybody else here with a license at all whatsoever, because these midwives are state licensed and they're all reporting everything. Yeah. Because they have to legally. And so, but just for safety, I threw in the towel at 48 hours. So.
One question. This is the thing. When I mentioned the citation, what happens is I mentioned the general. Don't worry, I wasn't referring to you. I'm just saying this is generally what it is. They say to the mother that most certainly, as soon as she knows, to act, literally to go to the hospital, because essentially that's what it is. But I'm saying back in the days before that, the mother used to just gestate. She knows she's expecting. She just gestates, just takes care of herself and so on. The house back in those days used to be identified differently. They didn't use the same trickery of dedicating the house, because essentially, how is it, do you think, that you earn equity in your house? That's the question as to what leads to what a connection it has with maternity.
Wait, so repeat that question. How does the house connect with?
How does the house acquire equity?
How does the house acquire equity? When you bring in a new asset, a new fruit of your labors to the situation.
And what happens with that? Because in order for the house to acquire equity, it has to be traded somewhere in order for the value to increase, yes?
It has to be documented. I wouldn't necessarily say traded, but...
What trade is a documented act. That's the issue, because let's say if you purchased a house, it has a certain commercial value, but then how does it actually increase in value? Because the increase in the value of the house post-purchase is classified as the equity, in addition to whatever other changes you may have made to the house. That's what I mean. So
more residents living at that residence, more Social Security accounts attached to that house.
That would be intrinsic value, but I mean, okay, but and that's just in the traditional. Okay, I'll put it this way: when a house is purchased,
I don't know.
No, it's okay, not an issue. No, I was just saying because I didn't want to assume and then go, hey man, you should have just asked first, man. Don't assume anything, because it's not nice. What it is the fact. Thank you, because the thing is, And I do say again, it's a good thing that you made the right call, because it's true. You don't want to actually have a situation where if it's beyond, then, you have to look at the fact that you have to seek other choices. You can't actually be blind to that. Yeah, that's what I said. You've done an excellent job on that. Now, the issue is what I'm saying is when you purchase a house, it acquires equity. The way it acquires equity is because the house of itself was actually made by a fettered purchase. So it was dedicated to the high seas by way of the stock market so that they could continue to trade on that asset. It acquires equity, and that's how they can increase the price of the house. thus coming to the time when you may want to sell it, the house has increased in equity, not just because of maturation, but it was traded on the stock market. That's why the mortgage payments keep on going up, because it's highlighting that the house is something to be traded upon the stock market to generate money. And then most certainly when you're in the house, if you made any adjustments, that also is taken into monetary accounting for the value of the house. So the thing is, it's still classified as what? Positive equity. So the thing about that is...
That's why they want to document any and all improvements so obsessively, and we will endlessly be getting more and more building code because you're adding improvements, which is adding to the value that's being traded.
And it not only because it's being traded, because when you conducted the purchase, if you purchased it with cash, there's a TR1 a part of that particular transaction. It transfer when you first purchase it. If you do it absolute, you keep the property. But if you purchased it with cash, it immediately includes the TR1, and it's done in a way that most certainly it entails it to the Vatican. It becomes their property, and you're stuck with the liability of maintaining it. It activates a tax implication.
What if I built my house and it was not purchased from anybody? There was just land. I had a lot, purchased a lot, and we built it out of pocket. We built our little tiny house, small home out of pocket. How does that value? Is it just any different, or is it just the same concept?
Actually, it's different, because what it is, let's say, for example, you had a plot of land, okay? It depends upon how that land is classified.
With my land patents.
Sorry?
That. I also have the land patents on this plot of land, too.
Excellent. So what this is the fact that we mean that that's a significant value to it. So basically what it is that you do is you have the property. As per those particular patents, they're actually classified as more in the private than they are in the public. This is why they're so highly valued, because it highlights a particular spiritual right. If that property is in that particular classification, then what you build upon it will be identically thus. The technicality is that you got to make sure you have a political status declaration in virtue first, so that when the house is manifest, and then most certainly, because you can't register the house. That's the thing.
Wow. Isn't manifest a high C terminology?
It is the manifesto.
Wow. Okay. Reclassify and manifested. All right. Sorry, I'm writing this down.
That's okay. No, it's fine.
All right. Mic check. 1, 2.
Just here. No, I just wanted to make sure that you're okay. Yep. So, yeah. So that's basically what it is. Because of the property, a lot of people didn't realize that there's subtle transactions from it. So that's why I said, if you want to purchase it, it's the fact that you say to people, it's like, okay, I got the land, it's mine in my own right. Okay, so if it's mine in my own right, I want to build on it. But the technicality is after you've built it into what you should, don't register it. Because the moment you register, again, you're doing the same thing as a TR1, transferring it and entailing it upon the Vatican. Then comes the encumbrances.
Dang it, I already did that.
You can actually nullify it, but the thing is, then you have to put exemption and say free man on the land. You have to use that as a way of reclaiming your entailments. You can do it with your political status declaration, basically citing, and also highlighting that's also your ancestral home, because there's certain things about that most certainly they will take into consideration, bearing in mind what we've actually discussed today as regards estate establishment and so on, because estate is a public term.
Yeah.
Sorry, say again?
There's no way you can get power to your home without doing all the bullshit. There's no way you can get a CO, certificate of occupancy. There's no way you wouldn't be getting the sheriff, visiting you. You can't get water to build. You can't get water or electric. Do you see what I'm saying? On a piece of land without.
Oh, I know.
It's not like
that's what I'm saying. So now you
have to undo it. I mean, nullify.
Yeah, if you want to do it, I'll tell you. Well, what it is, I'll tell you. If you have a situation, because this is what people say, but oh no, what's done it? Because it's true. Because the way the Admiralty are now said they can't step into anything that's private. It has to be something that's done by Admiralty. There was a particular case about it, and the guy said, "Sorry, I can't actually to conduct the necessary works because the house is private." So they had to wait, go register the house, then they were able to actually let the engineer in. So you see what we're talking about?
Yeah, because engineers' licenses are commercial.
This is the thing. So what you have to do is then most certainly to get, or unless you become qualified yourself, the particular qualification that you need in order to implement the transaction. Thereby, if someone that actually has it, that's why you check with the officers whether or not they actually operate in the private, because they've got the license to do it. You don't need to get another one. They can operate in the private and make the particular transaction as befit. Otherwise, no.
Yeah. Well,
So this, sorry. So what it is, no, because we had that situation. We had an agricultural mortgage for 31 and a half years. So essentially, with all of what that is, they when it was incepted, they just didn't do it correctly. So we had a lot of encumbrances, and the way that's connected to maternity is the fact, whilst it's actually they ask you for the census to the head of each person. So therefore, those things are actually interpreted every year. Birth certificates and the rest of it traded upon the stock market. You see where this starts to go.
Yep.
So if someone's looking to have an infant, it's the fact that because of things that they've actually put on those contracts, they can use it to extract energy. So if a mother's about to bear fruit of her child, think about that is, you see exactly what it is. People go, oh, but why isn't it so painful? It's because there's certain spiritual things that were put there. But if the house is completely exactly as it should be, meaning not having those particular admiralty seals against the house, it's been a completely distinct remit.
Amazing. I would love to pull this off for my second child. That would be amazing.
The way that you would do it essentially is that you would claim freeman on the land on the counter X, and that with that particular house, you would actually put it in exemption brackets. But if it is, most certainly that you would have to understand that you would actually provide extension. You'd have to increase the capacity in admiralty as a sovereign, citing that although the house is in an exemption area, that it's in the private, if most certainly you do contract with them, citing that it is of a private nature, you do give permission for the entities to conduct the necessary works. So because bearing in mind, if they say, oh, I can't step into the house, and this is no, they can. They can step into your house, but what it is, they're subjecting themselves to your jurisdiction. That's why you have the gate and the fence. Because if they put the hand on the fence or they put the door through it, they're actually subjecting themselves to your jurisdiction.
Yeah, that's awesome. I have no mailbox. My gate says private property. The home is in the back. My driver's license says general delivery. I got a homeless person ID and I got a UPS box instead of a PO box as of right now, just because I didn't really know how to operate as professionally as everybody is discussing tonight.
Oh, that's not an issue because it's not easily put out there. This is why I said it's fractional existence. It's the information or the particulars that one needs to master is exactly as such. It's only because depending upon whether people had certain affiliates with certain trades, they actually, like Ms. Lee, she put pieces together because, as she says, what her profession is. So therefore, certain things become quite clear to her. She's, well, I'm aware of banking practice, I'm aware of this, I'm aware of that. But there's some other things, well, from what I understand of it, but then you realize it's the trickery because there's certain things that happen in between to try to color things as opposed to what they say is conventional sayings.
Yeah. I've been having fun learning little tricks along the way. Like the homeless person ID, the driver's license, I had one issued to me. I said, hey, I'm sorry, I don't, where I sleep is not the business. Can a homeless person get a driver's license? And they said, yeah. I said, okay. And so my driver's license says general delivery. And the only reason I really wanted to do that is because any officer that ever looks at it, they can come find you, yada, yada. But if it says general delivery, they have to find me within the entire city if someone wants to serve me paperwork, because where I sleep, there is no mailbox. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yes, it is, because postal order basically means from the postmaster. But if you refer to the exemption of the particular logistics firm, you can most certainly have those. This is what I was explaining before when somebody said, we don't want to interact with these particular people. How you do it? I said, well, basically you need to either purchase a firm or you create one from scratch that has that particular function. But the way that you actually do it, post your political status declaration, and it takes on what you are. So therefore, you actually had it. It's an exempted firm, and then just basically convey your things to the postal service, just so that they can still deliver to you, but you just know exactly your own service. Sorry, you were saying, Danny?
Yeah, I just wanted to add to something that I've learned from that. I used to have the same thing, but what I came to a conclusion of too is, you know what, if unless you're looking at the docket in your county or whatnot, if someone is trying to serve you and it's legal matters, and just because they can't find you to serve you, there's other alternative methods that they could serve you. And if you don't, if they don't find you and they serve you, let's say for instance by publication or posting, and you don't see it in the newspapers or wherever they post it or whatnot, then you would fail. You wouldn't even know if someone was trying to sue you. So there's a downfall. There's pros and cons in a lot of things. So, but one of those kinds of things, like I'm a person that keeps up with it. So that would be way would work for me. But yeah, like I heard you say, so if the police try to serve me or whatnot, definitely look at the cons too. I mean, the pros are yeah.
Well, they're not even supposed to be serving you. That's why they serve you.
Well, the thing is, what you were talking about exactly is that if most certainly you're supposed to be served with something, and that was what you were talking about, fundamentally they have to use the correct process. They have to do it in a court of law. Plus, it has to be sent by specialist courier. They can't use it throughout the conventional service because something like that actually has certain security ramifications. But you see a lot of courts sometimes when they just have to say, oh, it's a second-class matter. You cannot do that. Because this is why I said again about political status declaration, because it's an absolute, they realize that they've got to use white envelopes instead of brown ones, because that's also postal language. And also, if you have a correct political status declaration, there isn't a reason to sue you because you're completely in the private. This is why I was saying again, where they try to get people to literally get ruffled up and everything else. Because essentially that negative classification of jurisdiction, because they messed it up for the person, so therefore they were able to utilize it to get a considerable amount of money to which they were unentitled out of them.
Yeah, for someone in the comments that's saying they're making a CFPB complaint, you don't have to know the codes, but if you don't know exactly the full knowledge behind of what the codes actually mean and how they're benefiting you and protecting your rights, then you might want to use the codes just so you could copy and paste the part that is what's violating you, so they know. Because if you word it wrong, trying to get the concept of what you're trying to let them know where your rights are being violated, then if you say it the wrong way, that they might not even know what you're talking about. So if you, at least when you do put the code, you could highlight the part that you believe that they're violating you on.
Sorry to interrupt.
Yeah, you're good.
Sorry, I was gonna say you highlight it correctly. If a person is well versed, they'll be able to say it in more than enough. In other words, saying that the particular entity conducted a breach of international convention by the way of trespass. They attempted to frog march an entity into their admiralty jurisdiction. Thither thus is cause for citation of objection moved to strike, citing the particular cause of redress, and then this. That's the wordage, but most certainly if you're talking about the acts, yes, it's just a matter of psychology, because I said the same thing as what the code is. It's just a fact that, oh yeah, they tried to do that. They tried to serve and they didn't do it the right way. Yes, because they tried to frog march you, because if they don't use the correct process to notify you, that's attempting to pervert the course of justice, thereby it's classified as contaminated routes. So that person is as most certainly an enemy combatant, manifesting the citation of solicitation, unlawful solicitation. So there are many things that you can actually go, oh, what do you want? Wait. You mean we could do that? I said this is the issue, because what it is, in admiralty, they try to get a person to be so conditioned to do so many things to acquiesce to admiralty that when it comes to exercising rights, you basically find out you can't use them with great effect because you've been curtailed. That's basically what it is. So when you're said, this is why I used my own example as a search child and said, hold on, when you're there, you got a lot of these things and you go, I need to nullify all this. So that's why I said, when it came to the National Audit Office, all those particular bureaus, be it within or without the United Kingdom, send it all the way through. And that is the reason as to why it is. Once I conducted the discharges, conducted the audit first, then the discharges. Then it was a matter of now I had to hand back the warrant card. Then I did the political status declaration July 30th, 2013. It had to be done in that particular process to actually highlight the fact. To highlight the fact that I was doing things in the correct way. Once I had that, then I had absolute standing, because the entire mechanisms were released. And so the thing about that is, with everything said and done, with what most certainly happens, it's the fact that if somebody tried to communicate with me, they realized they had to do so properly. Because when you've done it properly, there's a thing where they cannot actually levy anything against you. It's, oh yes, we have to refer to you as if you're not here. That's basically what it is. So let's say if someone's trying to pull a fast one and go, oh well, there's this and that, and somebody did actually take it back to the sent it back and said, that particular person needs to be corrected because they made a defamatory statement. This was not the case because I came off the bait on that day, so I could not have been in claim of that because I actually handed back the warrant card. So when they were trying to use trickery and the rest of it, they had to dismiss the case. And then most certainly with the property that they stole, that it was the thing was certainly the certain things that had to be forward me in terms of it being in possession of. So that's why I highlight there is a lot of trickery there. So that's why I said to people, first of all, and then when I purchased anything, I went, I don't trust these people. This is just so dirty. Pulled everything out, put it back in the jurisdiction where it was supposed to be, as in I took it out of classical Europe, all those assets I took back to where they're supposed to be originally. Then most certainly, whatever I needed to do, and I actually purchased it the way I should. But this is where I said to people, I'm not going to do things in the public. I'm only going to use gold because you're in the private, you're in the spirit realm. So I said, okay. So when it came to the government of the particular location, I said, well, these are the particular laws as regards my innate jurisdiction. This is exactly as to what it is. I will not use the means of exchange. I will not be expected to. You will not be. It will not be. There will not be the case to manifest an expectation, nor shall there be a necessity to acquiesce with means of or accounts of exchange. So, and anytime I've actually put forward and I say I want to purchase something, or if I don't have to communicate with people, this is the particular seal that I use as regard. Is not what I'm going to say. This is the particular instruction that I actually give with regards to the particular subject.
Hey guys, Spencer from Florida is going to be checking out. I may tune in, but I'm going to exit the live, and it's been an absolute pleasure. I'll see you guys soon. Thank you, Kick-Ass Panda, Lee, CK, everybody.
Spencer.
My fellow Florida man.
Florida man. Two Florida mans.
Yeah.
We're not going anywhere.
Shit, I think Lee's in Florida too.
Lee's not far from me either.
Yeah.
You guys are neighbors.
Yeah. Awesome. Neighbors on the
We're coming up. Florida and Texas, I see they're actually doing something.
Mm-hmm. That's right.
If Texas has Texit, what would we call Florida's? Flex it.
That's good.
All right.
Yeah. Take it easy, man. Have a good night.
Jamie,
Peace.
you're in Florida? So is Self Mastery. All the neighbors are here.
Damn.
Here's all the Florida folk.
Florida.
Yeah, I find more people in Texas and then like Pennsylvania.
Yes.
More people out in California, but most are like in Texas for me.
I know, I agree. It's crazy. Everyone in Texas is on TikTok.
Right? There's 91 of us in here. Y'all, tell me where you're from.
Yeah, tell us. Put it in the chat.
See, I think most of them are Texas, Cali, and Florida.
Of course. Where's
Arizona, I see.
Where's the Illinoisers? Where's the Chicago people?
Pennsylvania, the one in Pennsylvania, the UCC codes, they're actually not, I believe,
Okay,
I'm
here's
not
all the
mistaken,
California
they're
folks.
not called UCC, it's not called Uniform Commercial Code. It's something else, but they have the same concepts behind
California.
it. I don't know if you knew that, but
California.
check it out.
Cali.
Yeah, I actually that one sounds like that's the dual system, because in other when it came to 13 colonies, at first they called it the record of complaint and then they redressed it. That's what happened.
You're in Florida too, we the people. You got another neighbor, guys.
Malice is in Boston.
Where is Malice?
Boston.
Oh, Boston. I always forget you're from Boston. Go park the car. Malice.
Yeah.
Oh, yay. Autumn, you're in Illinois, finally. Somebody's
That's like 5 different states that everybody is like from, like, that's out of all, like 51 now? I don't even know how many states we have now. What is it, 51? Counting like Mexico or some shit now?
There's quite
I
a
can't
few
keep
in
up.
Louisiana, too.
Yeah.
Self-Mastery said he's from the land, okay? He's not from a state. He's from the land.
That's it.
Yeah.
That's how you beat your property taxes. All your houses are not in United States. So how are they even trying to turn?
Miss Ultimate is from Europe. Tuning in from my husband, in for my Florida-based husband. That's cool. Hello, Europe. That's cool.
Very cool.
1 second. There's a question here. Kick-Ass Panda, how much out of pocket are these audits going to cost us for these accounts, or are we using IRS? You're utilizing your treasury accounts most certainly to handle all of them ab initio. That's why you're not coming out of pocket.
Yeah, and there's actually a way to do free postage as well.
That's right, because they're also under the Emergency Act.
That Emergency Act is like,
it bites.
It should just, that's all we should have to ever say, and that's it. It's over. Like, I don't understand why it's this difficult to get back what is ours. It's unbelievable. While we're in a bankruptcy.
Well, think about it. They ain't gonna just roll over all these bosses and high titled people. They've been getting all these big bonuses at the end of the year. They ain't gonna give it up for like no problem. Shit, they're like shit. These fools been not knowing the system that we've been playing on this long. Shit, we're gonna keep on doing it. And when they do find out, the ones that do find out, we'll just pay them, and because we're still gonna profit at the end of the year. They're breaking the laws that they have, that they made, breaking their own laws that they made.
The Emergency Banking Act, Banking Relief Act of 1933.
Yep, that basically means any bank that's in trouble, basically they get bailed out, whether they're actually competent or not.
Mm-hmm. Look how while we're left destitute.
we lost 5 banks in the past year. Last year was 5 banks that actually dropped or went bankrupt, or however you want to say it, but they actually, another bank bought them over. I found out that, I forget what bank it was, the last one that dropped. Who was it? Bank of America?
No Bank of America? AJ, no downer question.
I can't remember it, but it was bought by its sister, a little town sister company that owned it. I looked it up, and everybody's like, "Oh my God, the bank! Go get your money out of the bank. Go if you have a bank, or you're banking at this bank, go get your money." And this and that. They're going bankrupt and da 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 da. I found out it's fucking. And when you go look it up, they basically it's just a sister company bought it, and they're taking over everything.
Autumn, in the chat from Illinois, tell me where you live in Illinois.
Is it pronounced Illinois or Illinois?
No, that's funny you ask. Everyone that doesn't live here pronounces it Illinois with an S, so I say it to mock that kind of, but it's a silent S. It's Illinois. If I didn't live here, I would think it was Illinois with an S. I mean, shit, why is the S even there?
Hey.
Belvedere, oh my gosh, you're not far. My best friend from high school was from there. That's cool. You're like an hour away. Not even.
Leah, I'm still trying to figure out how to do it all free mailing without I gotta know it all before I start doing something. But I want to so bad.
I'm by, if you know where Schaumburg is, I'm right by there, by the O'Hare Airport.
It drives me crazy having to go to the post office to,
like 15 minutes
to send these letters and shit out.
I know, Danny, that's the pit.
I feel like I'm wasting time, and not only that, wasting money to having them do something that it should be free anyway.
I agree.
Especially when these assholes are going to just not send back what you're requesting anyway, because they can't, because they're breaking the law in the first place.
Yeah. Especially if the post office isn't like really close to you. Like mine isn't close to me.
But you can claim on this, but just 1 second. Sorry to interject. Danny, you know how you had the citation of a disability? Have you actually claimed it with regards to the postal union? Because basically they can actually come to your house on those grounds.
No, so I only filed for disability. They haven't gave me a disability. Remember, I was denied because I got 2 broken screws out of my 2 top screws out of the 4 screws in my back, and 2 rods are completely broken, snapped off. And you look at my MRI, it looks like space. Like the negative is just they're broken in pieces, and they're pinching my nerves and shit. So, but they still denied me. So this last appeal, I'm on the last appeal to where I go to the Supreme Court, I think it is, if I'm not mistaken, if because I already had a hearing. She denied me, and I was like, okay, well now this, I wrote, instead of just to appeal, I told him straight up, I wrote him a letter saying like, listen, I'm appealing this, but also you guys like violated my rights, and I pointed out the rights that they violated. So it was more of like an appeal and letting them know that I ain't playing games with them. Because they'll work me till
not playing no
One
games.
second. There is that. Well, just 1 second. If at all anybody isn't using the mic, I respectfully request that you mic up. It's just because that whilst we're speaking, there's a bit of an echo. It's becoming a bit cacophony. No disrespect intended. But thank you. Do continue, Danny.
No, I was just stating that, they just denied me, and I'm on my last appeal to where I guess I go to the Supreme Court. So I don't know if that mattered, or if it just mattered that I had to apply, and then them denying me or whatnot is what you're talking about with the mailing part. I don't know, but please elaborate.
You can basically, essentially, I have a mother that's disabled because of the fact of certain medical conditions that she ended up there's certain medical conditions that she possesses that manifest over excessive mechanical breakdown as well as other traumatic events. I'll put it that way. So to begin with, they pretended like it didn't exist until I basically let them know straight away. I am going to tell you once. I'm only going to, and I'm going to tell you once. You are going to most certainly tend to her. Anyhow, you will have me to deal with. So bearing in mind, you know how I am. I don't take that. So the thing about it is they're like, okay, because they know straight away. Who's the oh, that person? She knows how to sue the ass off of us. Thank you very much. That's basically they know straight away. I have no qualms with query about that. I will clean them out. So the thing about it is, she had a myriad of things. So correctly after moving house, then she most certainly is seen by a specialist team that actually correctly diagnosed exactly as to what she had, what I've been saying for quite a long time, but it's now the fact it's on documented and it's on paper. So to cut a long story short, having to use I read it to correct the things that they said that the applied synthesis most certainly did not. And what she ended up having a situation where it took her a while because, like I said, she had to taper. Not just taper, but she had to flush all the toxins out of her system, things that are causing her to have issue. After she came back after having a month in the hospital, where she basically was 3 to 4 fluid ounces lighter because she was internally drowning. So they got rid of that excess water, all the particular things that most certainly manifest. So she realized, wow, that's serious. So it was very much touch and go. The thing about it is she wasn't able to go anywhere. So people say, oh, why don't you get into it? And like, the woman has mobility issues. She's still recovering. And obviously on account of that, they have to make sure that they're careful. So the thing that actually happened was the scenario basically manifest that they try to cheat her. And so I said, well, put it this way. You've got 2 options. You either tend to this particular woman, or I'm going to clean your entire department out, and I'll levy the lack of which you'll never be able to practice medicine even in your mind. Much less, and I do say again, even in your mind, in terms of the classification of thoughts, much as anywhere else. You better treat her, and you better start it now, because there are certain things that she needed for her state of mind. So I told her, this is how you do it as regards X, but she also needed the medical citation because she's still identified. She needs the record trace to highlight where the state was negligent. So then she had that done. All the documents said, right, now apply for the specialist citation. So they said, no, they said you're on the vulnerable list. So if you're on the vulnerable list, basically you've got a situation where most certainly you are classified as such because the classification of your disability is in excess of 50%. It's to do with kinesiology, neurology, and a few other things. So as per the state, that's why you want to look at the ADA, the American Disability Association, and how it is that it classifies, because you can get that judgment overturned if you have a situation where your mobility or your kinesiology is impaired, and there's in a certain ratio of what it is, and you just basically say what it is, what you actually deal with. You can actually send it to the central bank and actually have them nullify the magistrate opinion, because essentially what you're saying is you have specialist jurisdiction. They should have diagnosed it correctly. They didn't do that. They tried to most certainly apply in the negative. That's what they get your political status, because Ma they tended to her correctly after she had her political status declaration done in 2016. So therefore things were actually a whole of it like, yes, no, we can do this for you and whatnot. So I said, what was this? So they gave her the necessary medicines. They did try to mess around with a certain point. I'm thinking they do not want me to actually put and speak to them on that phone. Okay, strong worded without having to use expletive, but most certainly they'll know straight away they won't talk to me again. So I was situated, so he says, they got as irate as I was. They went, no, hold on, pay attention. She does not have to. What are you talking about? But you're disabled. They're supposed to actually give you these particular packages as a disabled person. You're supposed to be on the vulnerable list. You're supposed to have your medical condition. You're supposed to actually be highlighted on every register as regards to those who you trade with. Plus, you're supposed to have additional, grants and bursaries or the citations application of matriculacy. So, what exactly is that you don't that they didn't understand? So basically, it was the thing. She says, I didn't know that. I said, I told you. So next thing about that is we got it all sorted out. So she applied to the necessary departments. Then most certainly they understand. She most certainly is required X. So the thing is that after that, you literally have to document the medical citation. So I took that document. So because of what certain people put her through, her former landlord trying to most certainly do her situation and trying to evict her. So I said, give me those documents. Basically put the entire thing on it, highlighting how the landlord was acting in dishonor, disrespecting a particular one second. How much? 1, 2, 3. So the situation was, like I said, so it was one of those things that I just said, no, we're not going to have anything of this. So I actually created a jacket, highlighted the medical citations, and then it did say objection moved to strike. I actually levied the lien against the landlord and a myriad of other citations. And so basically what happened was that that my particular court implemented the instruction that I told them, no, I don't need to be represented because I'm doing it myself. I just said straight away, implement those particular ones against the corporations that most certainly acted in dishonor, highlighted the exasperation of a particular woman that already has these cited medical conditions. So I put the reports out, did a whole bunch of other things. Well, all of a sudden, they're as sweet as anything. We lived there for 6 years and we were put through absolute hell. All of a sudden, as sweet as pie. Please don't hesitate to contact us if there's anything citation. If there's any... Wait for it. You doing that now? Wait for it. It's like, oh yes, we noticed that you have special. You're on the vulnerability, registered to because what they're saying is, if you have limited mobility, you cannot operate in the military. That basically means if somebody in the admiralty has caused that injury, they need to reparate it because if you're reduced by 50% capacity, just because the fact that there's certain things that cause your kinesiology to be affected, that means that the value of the bond has been reduced. That's collateral damage. You can clean them out for it. And if they don't give you the particular judgment that you're looking for, you levy a lien against that department for a very big figure, which they won't be able to. Sorry, Ms. Lee, say it again.
You're fine. When you talk about the term jacket, is that compiling a packet full of certain documents and certain, like putting that on notice with an instruction letter? Is that, when you say jacket, is that the way that your terminology?
60 pages. She'll explain it. Watch. It's like 60 pages or something, if I'm not mistaken. But yeah, let her explain it. This is what I'm trying to understand too, Leah, fully.
It's like, yes, it is. As you said it quite correctly, a jacket is a particular document comprises certain enclosements that will certainly have a particular control card that actually highlights the principal instruction. There are subordinate ones that can be set. It's organized in a particular way to highlight exactly as to how things can be correctly triangulated within the Court of Finance. So that's what it is. They don't get the jacket right. That particular jacket is also known as an absolute enforcement. An absolute enforcement instrument. So it doesn't matter what the transaction is, even, and I do mean transactions, but I just want to correct the record, still to the Admiralty a transaction. Doesn't matter what it is, get it right, as in you put it correctly exactly as to what it is you're supposed to do. You've got no problems whatsoever. This is why I say use bond paper and utilize that rather than there's certain times when you can use the forms, and I've said exactly as to when that is supposed to be. But otherwise, when you're purely working in the private, you don't need to use no forms because basically you're using gold. You're not supposed to be turning your stuff over to those departments because when you use the form, you create liability because with the certain number of those forms, there are certain tax implications too because of to whom when it's actually shipped, the department actually remits associate communication with other entities. So therefore, it ceases to be private, but it's actually a fractional transaction. So this is why I say if it's kept purely in the private with a jacket, you only go straight to the particular entities, making it purely a private transaction. You're saying you have your particular means, they have to check it to make sure everything is ALM, meaning anti-money laundering. And you already know you've got that because they've already found out what your assets are. They just have to accept they'd have to accept what you have. That say they can accede to the code. They don't. If they don't, you can actually arrest them for that.
Is it 60 pages though? And I know it's a lot of papers or a lot of documents or whatnot. So do you use, after you make the jacket, do you actually use that jacket for every transaction or purchase? Maybe a little bit different depending on what you're doing?
The jacket is for every transaction.
And is it 60 pages or am I mistaken?
It's between 45 to 60 pages because it's a conventional transaction. When you're talking about 7 parts for what most certainly is required, it's 45. But there's some you'll notice that there are to 60. Just certain things depending upon with whom you actually have conducted the private contract with. If it's to do with the political status declaration, or in this case, you're actually creating your maintenance of your innate jurisdiction, it will be a lot more than that because you have to continue to utilize, as you would say again, you have to continue to utilize all the particular aspects that most certainly manifest, as you say again. If it's to do, excuse me, now it says I'm going to interrupt. Sorry, if bearing on what we say again about the jacket, you use it correctly in the private, you don't have encumbrances. It's only when most certainly somebody tries to tell you how to implement it incorrectly, that's where it actually causes issue. So then what we're saying is, if it is in excess of 60 pages, that's because that's a document that's used essentially to maintain the administration of your innate jurisdiction, is what I mean.
But, okay, so here's my thought. As administrators, since they are administrators and it's their administrative court, can't you go and assign them as trustees?
Well, the thing is, if you're trying to live in the private, you basically don't want to be utilizing the trust. You just reclassify it so it's put back in your treasury account. Because essentially, unless you want to pivot, in which case you still have to utilize both, and you have the option of utilizing both, I should say. But essentially, because the problem is that if you're saying that you're a secured party creditor, that's why I use that term, because if you're a secured party, that's if you have no political status declaration in virtue, because what they've done is taking you as surety for something. That's what they say. That's why I'm saying secured party or a creditor, because at that time the two are not the same. When you're classified as a secured party creditor, that's when you've completed your political status declaration. So then in which case you are the one that actually incepts what you should. You're the one that gives absolute command because you've gone back to your rightful place. So you would not make anybody a trustee to what you have, because if you make them a trustee, they're the ones that have executive exemption, and you don't. You still end up being a beneficiary.
But if they don't act as the fiduciary, then aren't they? I mean, because they are creating bonds. That's exactly what they're doing.
Of course they are, because they're trying to play. There's a British expression called hedging their bets. Although what we would actually say is that they're playing both sides, because basically they're trying to use both the public and the private, mess up things. 1 second. DM me message. Use your 344-333-675-33362. I have to say it that way just because I was thinking of something. Please DM me directly and actually give you the particulars. Okay, thank you so much.
Yeah, because I'm doing right now. I'm in the same position. I have to get. Everyone knows I'm having a brain surgery, but I have been without, and I don't. I hate, because then you're conflicted, because are we supposed to need the government? Need the aid if we're solely capable? Well, but that money is there for us, and this is one way that we can access it, right?
Well, technically it's supposed to be that way, but the problem is that they've perverted. It's what I was saying to Ms. Lee. They've perverted the line, so you can't use it, because essentially what they've done is, because they've negatively, when they first gave the system to you, you were the one who was the account controller, so you could basically say whatever it is you wanted, and you just had to give direction, and that would be completed on your back. That would be completed for you, should I say? And because at a certain time they basically tried to do a thing where they tried to convert you in something that something that they shouldn't have done. That's the reason as to why you end up having a little bit of a problem, because basically what it is that particular transference, you end up having a situation where you don't have standing. So you have to have someone else be your trustee, as they put it, because even though the E is not superior to the or, because originally you were the trustor, because they made it from you. The problem is they try to get you to switch places. So that particular person person has to actually have you matriculate to them that you're actually suitable, that you're actually capable. So this is the reason why I was actually saying to people, no, you gotta be careful of such things. So this is the reason as to why I said no. What you do is you can perfect your political status declaration. That's the easiest one to do, because then you're back in the private, in the absolute. You're back in the private and the absolute. So then most certainly when you want to exact something, you most certainly study that you are innately the source. And they're not trying to play as if someone else is. You see what I'm saying? So then what you say is, I will pay you in addition in such, because don't forget, negative political status declarations, when they try to say that you're dead, that you've been dispossessed, then they can do whatever they want. They have to wait for a 5-year period. But when you get your political status declaration, that's basically what it is that you do. You keep yourself in the private. You say, I only want to do this. I'm not going to conduct trade on the high seas. And that's the hardest thing that most people have tended to, because they try to go, I want to do this, I want to do this really quickly. Hold on, you can't go to the high seas. What do you mean? You have to say absolute and unfettered. You can only use absolute and unfettered purchases with political status declaration in the affirmative, because that means you're not classified as anything as a threat to the state. You can then utilize your means. The state will actually acquiesce to your particular purchase. And if you do it any other way before then and trying to say the trust, the problem is that's wrought with problems, because they've put things at every junction to cause you to most certainly be in lack, because they're looking at the fact that they want to get as much money out of you as possible whilst you're in that position.
Okay. Well, I'll tell you what, California, I was laughing. My friend, like, just cross the border and come across, you'll get a check for $3,000.
Oh my gosh.
Go to Mexico, come on back. I'm like, not a bad plan at this time.
Well, no. When you're looking at it like that, it's like, hey man, the odds are pretty good. You know what I mean? It's like, it's not even slowing down. It's like, no, the odds are pretty good. But I know what you mean though, because like you said, it's just one of those elements that people have got to know. This is why I said to people, I'll break it down for you how to do it correctly, so that when you go in, you just see. Yeah, when you go in, you see exactly what it is.
I was classified as an independent contractor, and then I couldn't work anymore. And then my doctor even, usually you're eligible for short term. And they're like, I can't, like, you're not eligible because you weren't paying taxes. I thought, are you kidding me? You know how much taxes I've paid? Maybe not in the last 18 months, but I have on other taxes,
Well, what they've basically done is they've liquidated your bonds, their performance bonds in the public. That's what they do with taxes. They take the whole thing, because a nation state, when they have a bond which is directly proportionate to its performance. So if at all anything in terms of cash generation exceeds that, they got to tell these people to actually steal it or take it away. That's why I mentioned the movie Mad Money, because essentially once they have too many of these bills, one second, if they in terms of if you have too much of the averaging dollar in the market, cause hyperinflation, a lot of things, because it's causing the market to become volatile, because it doesn't have anything backing it that actually will regulate it. So the thing is, because of that, when they said to you, oh, but you want to get this, you want to get that, no, I'll tell you what it is. It's because most certainly they stole the equity that you could have used, and say, no, you didn't pay enough of it. What they're trying to say is that somebody, in an indirect way, somebody went cleaning out your account and did a whole heap of things that they shouldn't have. So that what should have been for you was certainly was not. That's why I said to both Danny and yourself, medically speaking, you put that in your political status declaration, that most certainly you seek justice against those people unless they actually give you the necessaries that you require. Because if you want to pivot in the sense of the fact that you want to use both aspects of it, there's a certain way you actually do it. You say, right, I'm still going to do that, irrespective of which. After that, if you say, hey, I want to completely be self-sufficient, there's a certain way you do that. So this is why I show people 2 techniques, but to do it correctly either way without all the nonsense, because there's a lot that they do to make sure that most certainly you're classified in a way that you can't actually repair yourself. Some people say, but I have money, but it's supposed to be for us. We're supposed to, you got to reclaim it, so you get your political status. So we keep on saying it again like it's a broken record, but it's literally, or a scratched record. But the issue is, because they know that in a nation state, political is this, if the politics is everything, because it's political science. If somebody's an enemy combatant, they can do whatever they want with them. But supposing if somebody on the inside is actually adjusted a little bit, basically another version of Shutter Island. So you see what I'm saying? So that's the situation as to what it is. So that's why people go, oh, I didn't know that. So that's why I said to people, excuse me, it's dangerous. trading with nation states if you don't have certain things in place, because they most certainly will levy the hammer. When you look at it, it's quite a harrowing thing in certain aspects, because you're thinking, hey man, I'm decent, I've always been responsible and whatnot. That's not what they're caring about. They're caring about the charge they can get for how much they can inflict to you.
Right. Okay.
But there is a solution, and that's with the political status declaration, because then you're claiming everything back, and you're saying, by the way, you are most certainly suing that particular department because they put you at risk.
Okay.
And you could also and you could also highlight that you actually be added to the particular risks, which actually to the particular medical register that highlights that you are of reduced capacities, and also as regards to, I know therefore are susceptible to a certain amount of vulnerability. But I'll mention that later on. So you can actually claim that, because that's supposed to do that, not supposed to put you in a particular situation where you can't actually do anything.
And would that also work, like, let's say, because my utilities, I feel like a broken record on these. I'm sorry, guys, you have to listen to it again. But, like, my bills here in California, good old California, are like $1,500 to $1,800 a month. My mortgage.
With the past house that I actually had, our bills were actually like that every month. Literally, it was what we nicknamed the house a white elephant, because basically it just didn't really work. Literally, it was our utilities that was going up like that. So I know exactly as to what it is that you mean. You can you can settle all of them. What you have to do is to conduct conduct a petition by post. You petition the industry, to be precise, that under that particular act, certain things are certainly not to be charged. So most certainly you seek the remedy that they accept that you receive continued services with X. So you'd say exactly what the X is that you use to be purchasing X, Y, and Z, but the way you do it is you notify them of this by way of the central bank. So if the central bank sends a document back, it's not been accepted, but if it is, that particular company has to speak with you directly so as to most certainly ensure that you have continued status. You have to highlight that particular part so most certainly you can get exactly as to what it is that you want out of them.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, that's the only thing. It's just my mortgage, and, like, the rest I can do,
Yeah, so we can help you with it, and also we can help you. Sorry, I was saying the mortgage we can help you with, because we did that predecessively, and you can get that dismissed. That's not an issue. You just got to make sure you've got the political status first. That's the one that's a big thing. Without it, you can't do anything. Sorry, ladies and gentlemen, I have to quickly go to the ladies' room. I'll be back shortly. Okay?
Hey.
I'll do it.
She has a wealth of knowledge.
Yes, she is.
I had to come up here, CK. I felt so lonely down there with no Michiganders in here.
With no what?
Michiganders. Michigan.
Michigan.
Michiganders. Michigan.
She's from Michigan, so seeing that everybody was from yours.
Not one person?
No.
What the hell? I only found one friend, Autumn. She's my only Illinois friend. You know what?
They're